Welcome to Legion of Myths Game Master Insight. Tonight, our panel of seasoned tabletop RPG veterans dives headfirst into personal stories, bold expectations, and powerful insights. Get ready to ignite your imagination and elevate your next gaming session. All right, welcome to Legion of Myths Game Master Insight. I am your host, John Maxley Oshlow, and I'm truly grateful you are here with us for tonight's discussion on how RPGs bring us together. Nice, happy family, kumbaya. We're going to be the best of friends after tonight. Yay. I sincerely hope you enjoy the conversation. A quick shout out to our first-time viewers. Thank you very much for being here. I really hope you enjoy the show. Share it with your friends and come back again. By the way, we hit 7,000 subscribers a little bit ago. Thank you very much to each and every one of you. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for your time and your support of Legion of Myth. All right. Please consider, wow, I can't talk all of a sudden. Please consider supporting Legion of Myth through the links in the live stream's description. Rumble rants and super chats of less than $20. I will read at the end of each segment, $20 or more. I'll interrupt the segment to read your rant or chat as immediately as I can. I'll let somebody finish his thought first. And $50 or more, I will drink in your name, and you can force the panel to answer any tabletop RPG-related question of your choice right then and there. If we reach $100 or more in Super Chats or Rumble Rants, there will be a $100 Palladium Books or Drive-Thru RPG gift card giveaway during the rando portion of the show towards the end of the live stream, segment 5, whatever you want to call that. Legion with YouTube members and Rumble subscribers, as well as tonight's Super Chatters and Rumble Ranters, have the opportunity to win, but you must be watching at the time of the giveaway to claim your victory, else it rolls over to next week. Legion Myth moderators will time out or even ban people who attack any panelist or chatter, attack the arguments, not the person, and keep your various social media beefs off of my show. I'm a little nervous. I was thinking about removing that little blurb from this intro here, but as soon as I remove it, somebody's going to act stupid. Please like this video, subscribe to all the panelist channels, which you can find in the description. I'll get Bacon in there in just a moment. And thank you for your time and support. Now, with that out of the way, let's meet our panel for tonight. Unfortunately, we did have a technical difficulty, but Bacon, and this is why I do this. For those of you who are like, well, I don't know if I want to sign up for being backable, Bacon, sincerely, thank you very much for being prepared to back up tonight. Boom, you're here. But we're going to start with Bear. Bear's been on the show a lot, so I think he kind of knows this part. But please introduce yourself. Briefly tell us what products or media you create and your tabletop RPG experience. It's for the audience. It's not for me.
I know. I am Bear the Gen X GM. I run a channel called Bear the Gen X GM. I am an opinionated Canadian. I won't swear because we're not allowed to swear anymore. I'm an opinionated person stuck in Soviet Kanakistan. I produce Heroic, the role-playing game. I have a Patreon. And as of this week, I am working hard on something that I think our hobby needs more than anything else right now. Valorous. The game of heroic fantasy role-playing. That's right. No shadow this, no grim that, no knives in the dark. Actual heroic role-playing. Being good guys and fighting bad guys. In a world where vampires aren't misunderstood, orcs aren't confused, goblins aren't the indigenous people who've been displaced from their swamp. They're evil, son. And it's your job to stop them.
Woohoo, I get to kill goblins.
Goblins. Yeah.
All right. In the middle, we have Lord Mattias back with us. Good to see you, sir. Please introduce yourself and briefly tell us what products or media you create and your tabletop RPG experience.
My name's Lord Mattias. I have a YouTube and Rumble channel. YouTube is Lord Mattias. Rumble's Gaming with Lord Mattias. The linked tree has links to all that. Behind me, you see books that I've produced. You can find them at Lulu. For the Wretched RPG, the one on the far end is actually for Lamentations of the Flame Princess and is on Drive-Thru. I have a blog. I do a YouTube channel. And on Friday nights, 11 p.m., 10 Central, my friend Gary and I have a live stream where we just chat about games, game mastery, and all that cool stuff. I've been doing this for quite a few years. Some might say my 40 years. And I just love talking about I just love talking about games because and I think this topic today is going to show a lot of people like the heart behind it all.
It's been been interesting. Well, not recently, but when I first posted this topic a couple of months ago, a lot of interesting responses to it. So I hope it works out well tonight. And Mr. Max, you already are an orc. You don't get to play yourself. Stop it. That's right. I went there because he's not here to defend himself. All right. Now, for the first time on the show, we have Bacon. Please introduce yourself and briefly tell us what products or media you create and your tabletop RPG experience.
Hey, I'm Bacon. I don't create anything of note yet, but I do run the Better with Bacon YouTube channel where I am always on my bullshit about esoterica, bullcrap about esoterica with regard to role-playing. I've been role-playing off and on for a very long time. I haven't sat down and mapped out the years, but I started with Shadowrun 2E, rolled into Shadowrun 3E, and then diversified from there, Dungeons & Dragons, Vampire the Masquerade, and a whole bunch of other stuff from there. So that's where I am.
All right. No. So to be clear, I just ask that people just try not to swear. If it happens, it happens, but don't come on here and be a sailor, because I will start doing it and then I'll get nasty comments out there like, I could watch your show, but I can't have my kids watch. Thanks. You know what? If kids are watching, if that's my subscribers now, a bunch of kids, please be 13 or older. I don't do the COPPA thing. Then you know what? Then, you know, let's appease. What's that?
I'm just reaching up one of your demographics.
All right.
Bacon, I got to say, man, you said you did esoteric stuff, and I'm looking at you and I'm thinking you're either helping James Randi debunk stuff or you're trying to get his money, one way or the other. I can't figure out which side of that point you're on.
Not trying to get his money.
All right, so tonight's topic is, it's been worded a few different ways. I still don't have a distinct verbiage that I want for this, but it's basically about how RPGs bring us together. You know, a lot of us, probably you out there, have been playing these games maybe for 1 year, maybe for 50 years. And there's just something about probably your friend group that you've been doing this for so long. I have friends that I haven't lived in Minnesota for many, many years, but I still have a ton of friends back in Minnesota from those days, and we still talk about our gaming days back then. And so there's just this bond that brings a lot of gamers together. And so in our first segment today, we're going to be talking about connecting with others. It's how the relationships start, so to speak. So, Bear, we're going to start with you because you're in the primary position today, sir.
Yay!
So, how do immersive play and collaborative adventure design encourage participants to form deeper connections with each other at the table, even when someone holds differing viewpoints?
That question was bizarre.
Okay. So,
how do immersive play and what was the other one?
Well. This is why I send the questions out to people beforehand.
I know, I read them too, and I didn't understand the question when you asked it then.
Oh, you can ask me about that then. But no, so basically, it's how does being immersed in your character and collaborating as a group, how does that build the bonds of people, especially when they hold differing viewpoints?
If those of you who haven't seen he and I interact before, this is what we do. We just play the pedantic semantic game, and I pretend to be stupider than I am, and then he has to defend it. It's fun. Well, when a baby gamer and another baby gamer get together, and they usually do that when they're teenagers for the most part, they start discovering this fantastic world where they get to be more than just gangly, goofy teenagers with lots of pimples and a very overactive sex drive. And then as a result of that, they want to, keep doing it. And then they have fun, and then they enjoy each other's company, and they're not being terrorized by the sportos, or they're not being rejected by the prom queens, or whatever else may be, according to myth. In my world, that's not what happened at all. But absolutely role-playing. I still role-play. My home group still has 2 out of 3 players that I've been playing with for over 30 years plus. So I think it helps you build bonds. It builds cultural touchstones in your social circle. You are able to refer to things that only you guys are going to get, and you think are funny as hell, and everyone else just stares at you like you grew a 5th head. And ultimately, I think it benefits because it allows us to sometimes be someone we're not, and sometimes be who we are without realizing this is really who we are, and then showing it to people we trust and feeling confident as a result of that.
So I'm going to ask you an interesting follow-up before I open it up to them. It's like, have you ever noticed that learning about someone's character, how someone plays a character, especially if it happens over and over again, if someone's character's motivations altered how you related to the player himself?
that's a bit of a question. Seeing how someone constantly reacted in character gave me insight into their actual personality that they weren't normally displaying, because as a friend of mine once said, you'll never know what people are like until sex, money, or life is on the line. And gaming can give you all three of those things in a weird sort of simulist bubble, like a holodeck or something. Yes, I got a Star Trek reference in. Woohoo! Yeah, there have been people that I've stopped being friends with because of how they behaved in role-playing games, because their continual behavior just made me realize they were not good people, and they weren't the kind of people I wanted in my life.
That would have been every one of us when I was in high school. Luckily, we grew out of that. All right, what you guys have any questions, comments, concerns for Barry? Anything you want to follow up with what he said?
To follow up would probably to answer the initial question.
That's fine. You know what? As long as you get your answer out, I'm kind of relaxing my stance on that a little bit. So if your follow up also answers the question, as long as you get your say, then I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. Well, I agree. And I'm going to invoke Joe Bittman's Book of Antithesis here. It's a book that was written for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. The premise is, what if the satanic panic wasn't wrong? What if you actually were summoning demons and stuff? And it's written from the perspective of a cultist, okay? And it goes through and describes what happens when you sit down at the gaming table. And I think it's a really great metaphor for what actually does happen. You have your friends invoking these characters, and the game master is invoking what Job calls the spirit, the shadow realm. And it has this quasi-reality that all of you are participating in. And and we all use the phrase shared sort of experience, right? Well, what I think is interesting is it's kind of like tapping into these deep-seated aspects of who we are. And I do think you do learn something about the people you're playing with based on the characters they're making. But I think it goes much further than that too. I think, modern life is pretty cushy for those of us in the first world. And, to kind of invoke Fight Club, we get to, be a little bit more primordial when we get to swing swords and do crazy stuff when we're playing these games, using large guns to mow down bad guys and things like that. And while I'm not saying I'd like to go back to the caveman days or anything like that, because, I like penicillin, but the game allows us to tap into that. And I think, to evoke another series I just finished for like the fifth time, Band of Brothers, you have these experiences which are kind of like quasi life and death experiences, and you build these bonds. So Bob from accounting really did save Steve from marketing's life last weekend, if in a quasi reality sort of way, and I think that sort of experience, that tapping into that primordial experience is how these bonds are created. And not to go into too far into the other questions, but I've gamed with people that are fundamentally, voted differently than me, who, if we met in another context, would have been at each other's throats. And we gained some mutual respect. Like, I learned he knew me was not like some, monster from the GOP or anything like that, right? And I knew he wasn't some weirdo or whatever, what I mean, like these purple haired guys, like he was a human being, I was a human being, and we were both killing goblins, slaying dragons, and running off with loot together, and it was awesome. And not to get too personal, but he passed away just a few weeks ago. I've gamed with him for like 10 years, and good guy. And it was really awesome that we could set aside our political differences. You know what I mean? So I think that really, I said this earlier, this is the heart of the game, is where that focus, that fundamental, whatever it is that we're tapping into when we play, is what helps us kind of gel.
I'm sorry for your loss, man.
You're a lawyer, aren't
Thanks,
you?
man. So what?
Sorry for your friend's loss. You're a lawyer, aren't you?
Oh, well, there's an exception to the lawyers have no soul clause.
No. I just meant you're a lawyer. I can tell, because that was an amazingly long, detailed response.
Well, thank you.
And I feel like I now have to bring evidence to prove my point or something. Thanks, man.
Well, so Lord Mattias, what about folks that say It's just a game. This has nothing to do, this isn't who I am, or, like we weren't in any real harm. We were just rolling clickety clack math rocks. And so I don't look at it as like I have a serious echo or something going on. Somebody's echoing, because when I talk, I'm hearing something in return.
I don't think it's me.
No, I'm checking my speaker. Was Max breaking up for you too?
10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3. Okay, I think it was Bacon because he's the only one muted right now.
I'll mute myself when anyone else is talking. Apologies for that.
Thank you. But it's like, we're not really in any life or death scenario. I mean, it's like we're not starving. We went to Arby's to get something to eat. So I don't know what this idea is that we're sharing some sort of danger, because there's no danger here.
Well, go ahead, Barry.
Arby's.
Yeah, that's a different level of danger. My only response to that, it's hard to explain. It's one of those things you just sort of have to ask the person to just try it, to experience it. Like, how do you explain that shared experience? Because I've had people, my games fluctuate during the course of the 2, 3, 4, 7 hours, depending on the from, to borrow Mr. Max Boyvon's classifications, 1D to 3D. I don't think we've ever done 4D, but it fluctuates. Sometimes we're just, drinking beer and laughing, telling jokes. And then other times it's really intense. Everyone's role playing. It's just this thing you got to experience. Like, I don't know how I don't really know how to explain it other than to kind of point to like this like weird, almost like cult-like metaphor, where it's almost like you're invoking something that doesn't normally exist, but everyone's together is able to do it. And it has this like very real thing that happens, and that you walk away from the table. I mean, it's why we're still doing it at like 40 some odd years, 50 years, however old we are, but
there's a level of taking it way too seriously that you're broaching into here. And I get why you're doing it, and I get where it comes from. I understand it all, but I draw a line. And I draw a line at like, you're over that line as far as I'm concerned for gaming. Gaming is something I love doing. I enjoy doing it. I love hanging out with people. I love running games, love having a good time. But it is not a lifestyle for me. It is not a philosophy for me. It is not a measure of anything other than I like rolling dice and pretending to be someone I'm not and leaving it at that level. I get worried when people take it past that line, because I've worked in protection services, and I've seen what happens to people that are that susceptible to fantasy or to cult-like behavior or what have you, and where they can go when everything goes wrong for them, or when that process has suddenly vanished from their life and now they have nowhere to put that energy because they've developed nothing else other than that. So I get a little worried about that. And if I had a friend who was that invested, I'd probably be staging an intervention for them, because we're friends through gaming, but I'd be like, yo, bro, this is just a game. You know what I mean? Like, and that's when we were talking earlier about people I've cut out of my life. Some of those people were people who took it way too seriously. Something happened in the game, and then they held the grudge for a month.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, because I mean, I do agree that it is a game and that has to be understood. But the question was, how does this do that? How do we get into this, like, how do we connect? And I do think there's a primal element to it all. I mean, who in their right mind? I mean, and this is why I actually love Lamentations of the Flame Princess so much. James Raggi said, you got to be crazy to want to grab a sword and go into the depths of the earth to find monsters. That's what crazy people do. And so why would we as modern people want to do that? And I say it's hearkening back to our old caveman days, where that was sort of like ingrained in us. Like, it's like this survival instinct type thing. And I think games help us sort of experience that without having to experience it. Now, am I actually trying to tell you to grab the book of Satan? Well, you should, because it's wonderful, but like, it's got some spicy content though. No, I'm not asking you to actually invoke Satan or anything like that. I just think it's a great metaphor. I want to make it clear that I think that book is a metaphor.
And I get that, but so you're sorry, Bacon needs to. You should jump in here, man, because him and I are going to go now.
Yeah.
I get the analogy you're drawing. I get the metaphor, all of it, but I don't think we need to go back to caveman times to find this. I go back to when we were kids running around playing superheroes. And
no, I have a shield. You didn't hit me.
No, you didn't know. No, I'm super fast. You couldn't touch me. No, like that. That's all it is. And to ascribe to it a deeper meaning than that, for me, is a red flag. And it makes me go, ooh.
Well, I'm going to get right on my bull crap here then, and I will try to answer the question, the overall. Do
you want me to ask it again, or do you want to jump in like as in response to them?
I know what the question is, and you can repeat it for the audience. Go ahead and repeat it.
That's what I usually do. I just want to make sure. Are you doing this directly, or are you trying to jump in on their conversation? I just didn't want to interrupt if you're in their conversation.
I'm going to be in their conversation, but I'm going to answer the question to get there.
Okay, well, they can jump in on you then. So I'll ask the question, they can jump in on you. So just to remind folks of the question, how do immersive play and collaborative adventure design encourage participants to form deeper connections with each other at the table, even when they hold differing viewpoints?
So I'm going to do something dangerous here, and I'm going to actually step outside the hobby for a moment and invoke film. I like going to a movie because I instantly have something in common with everyone else in that theater. There is something about the subject matter of the film that we already have in common. It's a shared interest. Regardless of what else is going on in our lives, who is coming from what walk, who has what job, who has what family to return to or what situation, after that film ends, we can meet in the lobby and I can pick someone and just start a conversation with them. In fact, I had this happen to me the other day when I came out of warfare. Someone just picked me and started talking to me about soldiers and about war. And we had that conversation because we had that thing in common, right? Regardless of what you think about the movie. I could have done the same thing when I came out of Sinners. I could have done the same thing when I come out of any movie. And I think that role playing takes that to another level because we already have that thing in common, right? Provided there was some sort of session zero, some sort of agreement among the group about we're going to play sci-fi, we're going to play superhero, we're going to play fantasy. I know that I have that in common with at least that in common with even a completely new group of people who I don't know. And so on top of that, now we are going to work within the shared imagined space to come to agreements, to solve problems, possibly to experience conflict. And I think that extra layer, it's interest plus problem solving, it's interest plus this shared imagined space. Because even when you're not problem solving, even if it's downtime, you're still speaking into the table, and other people are then imagining what's going on, how you're describing it. It becomes a part of their imagination. And so I think that that's a very important thing to take into consideration when you come to the table. But I'm going to agree with Lord Mattius here. I think, because this is me getting on my bullcrap, when we role play, whether intended or not, whether you keep it light or not, there is a possibility to take this seriously in the context of a game, because it is a game. But I don't think the fact that it's a game is some sort of disadvantage or some reason to poo-poo the activity because it's not serious. Well, I'm not saying you did. I'm not saying you did. I'm not. The way that Max originally. No, the way that Max originally asked the question was, what about people who say it's just a game? So those are the people who I'm referencing, not you.
Okay, fair enough.
Not you. And I think that I just lost my train of thought. I'll get there. So
welcome.
It is a game. Huh?
Welcome to the show.
Yeah. It is a game, yes. And all of this takes place within the context of the game. As long as we're mindful of that, I think that you can take it as seriously as you like. And so when I start talking about things like invoking the warrior archetype as described by Jung, or I start talking about ritual activity as proposed by Eliade, or I start talking about these other sort of like fairy tales and what they mean with von Franz, when I invoke all of this literature and all of these individuals who've done all these studies, and I'm not saying that you have to agree with me on them. There are plenty of people out there who think Jung is a crock, and that's fine. You can think he's a crock. But I find it very cathartic when you attempt to experience it in that sort of manner, when you attempt to pull down the warrior and you play in a role-playing game, you're sharing a lot about your internality with everyone else at the table. What is your personal concept of the warrior? What do they do? How do they behave? You're communicating all of this to people. And at a table where heroic role play is the norm, I think that it really has that possibility to form strong bonds. I mean, even before I started speaking, there's this idea of forming these bonds with individuals over, 30 plus years you've known them. And I think that's a very key thing. So too seriously, possibly, but as long as we remember that it is in the context of a game, I don't think that it's a bad thing at all, even remotely.
And I just want to, and Bacon, it's been a while since I've read Jung. But isn't like the Jungian archetypes is something that's somewhat universal, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah, without getting too in the weeds, it's this cross-cultural idea of the warrior or of the sage or what slaying the dragon. They're universal. They're at least supposed to be universal.
And I would posit that that's part of how we kind of get a chance to experience it, because I don't know too many warriors in real life. I don't know too many sages in real life, modern day life. Maybe my chat GPT is the sage now. I don't know. But when I get a chance to play D&D, RP or whatever, TTRPGs, I get to tap into something that I just don't experience in everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Bear. You have the floor.
I'm renowned for taking gaming very seriously. I'm renowned for hating shits and giggles gaming and beer can gaming and beer and pretzels gaming and goofball gaming. It drives me up the fucking wall sideways with sparklers flying out of my ass. But what I don't do is make it pretentious. And I'm sorry, gentlemen. Quoting Jung and all these things is fabulous and it's wonderful, and I'm sure in college it got you far. But at a table of men with jobs sitting around, if one of my fucking friends started going on about the warrior archetype, I'd be like, "Are you okay? Are you getting a divorce? What's going on, man? What's happening over there? What's going on in your life that this is where we are?"
In defense of the position I think Bacon and I are taking here, we're just trying to get to the bottom line. I mean, look, I could answer all 4 questions, Max, by saying it's fun. It's fun to hang out with your friends and roll dice. But
that would have been a horrible stream.
I know, and so I wanted to take these questions seriously, and I do think like if we look at it from a philosophical perspective, we do have to tap into some of this stuff. And that's all. I'm just letting you know that's where I'm coming.
Okay. So you said you've never been you don't know any warriors. You've never been the warrior. I was the warrior. It was most of my adult life was being the warrior. From either bodyguard work, bouncing, private security, what have you, sex trade, work protection. I have been the warrior.
Oh, we're demonetized.
I have no illusions about the warrior. I have no illusions about pulling down the warrior. Plenty of people in our hobby have been to war. They've been warriors. They've gone, they've done, they've served, they've fought, and they have the scars and the stories to show. I think to ascribe that level, and I'm not trying to be insulting when I say this, though it's going to sound very insulting, and I do apologize to both of you because you're clearly learned gentlemen. Pomposity to what is ultimately a tactical simulation with some character role-playing in it is a bit much from my perspective.
I think it can be a tactical role-playing game, but I think that it also can be taken seriously. And I think that for some, taking it seriously offers catharsis. It offers unity, and it offers, some measure of escape at the table. So I don't disagree with you that games can often not be taken seriously, but they can. And I think that it's 2 different approaches, and I think that both are valid.
And I'm not dismissing the validity of your point. I'm hoping I'm making myself clear. I'm just saying I don't share it. I don't exist on that side of it.
That's fine.
I'm famous. I am famous for constantly saying all the time, role-playing is not therapy. Okay?
Oh, I agree with you on that. I absolutely agree with you on that. GM is not your therapist. They're not your spiritual leader. The GM is the GM.
And gaming is not spiritualism, and gaming is not men sitting around the woods beating a drum and I have the talking stick and all that. No, it's a game. And at the end of the day, whatever level of seriousness you take it, As long as you and everybody at your table are agreed on that level of serious, then that's beautiful. And everyone's good. And if you guys are as serious as you gentlemen are about the deep philosophical ideals of it and digging into those sort of really chthonic roots of it, beautiful. Fill your boots, knock yourselves out. And if all it is, hang on, let me just finish. And if all it is sitting around drinking beer and making fart jokes all night, but you're all having a good time and that's what you like to do, also beautiful. That's your thing. Not for me. That's not for me, and the level you guys are talking about is not for me. I'm somewhere in the middle of all that. Well, there I'm being a centrist again, Max. Look at me.
I need to move you to the middle. Go ahead, Lord Mattias. Sorry.
I just want to say I'm not actually trying to make a case that I'm not trying to make an ought argument. I'm not trying to make a prescriptive argument. I'm just trying to describe what I think is happening. I would argue my beer and pretzels games with my close friends of 30 years. That's us. In our modern day setting, trapped with middle class ennui in our basement of my buddies, getting a chance to sit around the campfire, beating on rocks with sticks because we're getting into that primordial. We're touching upon that primordial thing while we make the fart jokes and pound beers and occasionally role play.
And to be clear, I align with that view that I'm not trying to tell people what they ought to do or how they ought to play. What I'm saying is that there is potential here for this sort of consideration, if that's what you want.
Absolutely fair. And by the way, and to whoever said it in the chat, it went by too fast. I'm not disgruntled or even bothered by this. We're having a discussion.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm letting it go, because this is one of the best discussions we've had on any stream, even if, as far as I'm concerned, this is supposed to be a hugging stream.
I'm legit surprised.
We are going to get to the hugging, Max, if you let us get through the bristling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. The phase of group dynamics, right? Forming, storming, norming.
Yeah, this is a bunch of cats who've never met each other who are suddenly in the same room together going,
right. Well, let me read a super chat while you're doing that. Then you guys can get back to it here. Boom, $20 Law Dog. Thank you very much. It says, people explain fascination with certain movies all the time with archetypes. Why is it not allowed to be done when talking about TTRPGs?
Because one is active and one is passive. That's my difference. Consuming a film, consuming a book, consuming a radio show, consuming a TV show is a passive thing. And most of the writers who are producing them, I worked in the film industry for 20 years, have read Joseph Campbell until the pages fell out of their books. So they're adapting and trying to create something that is archetypical. They're trying to create something mythological. They're trying to create something that can, hopefully, if they're trying to be successful financially, not just a weirdo indie filmmaker, they're trying to do something that can have a mass appeal to the base sense of humanity. So they make a lot of money because humans resonate to it and go see it. The minute it becomes an active procedure, I think that's where the break point becomes. You are no longer a passive observer. You're not in the Platonic cave anymore. You are now in the field. You're out in the world, taking action, doing things. Now that ties into what Lord Mattias is saying about tying into our ancestry of cavemen hunting the Smilodon on the plains of North America and all that. And I get it. 100%, brother. Totally understand what you're saying. I just don't put that much weight into my gaming because humans are chaotic creatures and they will do things that are absolutely chaotic and sometimes make no sense. And
Let's shift. Let's go from film to theater. There are plenty of interactive theater experiences where you are given a dress code and you are, possibly not everyone, but individually can be roped into the goings-on of the story that's being told, of the acting, and you can be given a part completely and totally on the spot. And what would your view then be of that? Because that's not passive.
Active. Because you are no longer passive, you are now active. The experience changes for you.
I agree, but how does that differ in accessing archetypes? Because I think, as I understand it, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but you are saying that the passive experience is acceptable to invoke the archetype. I've switched that to now an active experience that is very, very close to that passive experience. There's one thing that's changed, but I would argue that those archetypes are still, oh, he's getting the glasses out. I would argue that those archetypes are still present, at least in the characters that are the actors, the characters that are being portrayed by the actors, and then also the audience. So how is that different?
Well, having been one of those actors that you refer to, again, what you're talking about is no longer bare bones theater. It is now an interactive experience.
Yes.
And that's where the break point will come even there. You can call it theater, you can call it a play, but if the audience is now interacting and playing with the actors on stage and they're waiting to see if they're going to be called upon, they now know in their head, I might be pulled out of my seat. I might be pulled out of my passive position into an active position. You get something very interesting that happens. Now, I've been an adult learning specialist for the last 15 years. 18 years, meaning I teach adults. I don't teach kids, I teach adults. And one of the things you'll notice about adults is when they are passive, they tend to be very calm, they tend to be very attentive, they tend to pay attention. But the minute you force them into an active role, there's a bit of a thing that'll happen. Either their need and desire to please their teacher will force them to overcompensate in their answer, and they won't answer like themselves, like the person that's saying they're being passive. They'll try to please, or they'll freeze. Malachi in Codex Albana, hey, what are you doing? Staring into space. It happens. Or you get the people that were more like me, which were the jerk. We're going to make a joke. We're going to try and get everybody in the room to laugh. Again, the active experience changes the person's reaction based on their social comfort. I don't think it ties into any archetypes from the caves. I don't think it ties into any tribal history from the Serengeti. I think what it does is it talks about how we exist in this tribe, in this urban concrete Serengeti we live in now, and how we react. Now, I'm sure you can do a bigger, deeper dive and tie that to ancient archetypes and all that. I don't have the knowledge to do that. I've not studied it like you gentlemen have. But I'm much more interested in how people are living in the here and now and how they're reacting now than anything ancient that might be pushing them forward.
Okay, and I understand that, but I don't know if that answers the question, which is fine. You don't have to answer the question.
Is it passive or active when they become part of the show? It's active, therefore.
No. The question was how. The question started with why can't we? And I think it was in chat. It was, we invoke archetypes all the time while we watch film. Why can't we then also invoke them in TTRPGs? Your answer to that question was, it's the difference between a passive experience and an active experience. So the passive experience is the watching the film and consuming the film versus the active experience of actually participating, embodying a character, etc. But I want to know how that changes when we get to a hybrid. So we have the potential for calling down the archetypes in the characters that are being portrayed by the actors, but now also there's this interactive element. I get that we've changed things. I've done that intentionally. I want to know how now the archetypes interact with that particular hybrid.
I'm not the person to answer that question because I have no idea. I've not studied it. I've not developed any philosophies on it, sadly.
Perfectly reasonable answer.
It is a very hybrid situation, and I would have to pay attention to it and see how it goes. The closest experience I can give you is improv theater. Improv theater is where you interact with the audience as a measure of the situation. You're still acting, but you're doing it based on instructions that come from the audience. As a result of that, I think it goes back to what I said about adults. Some people panic, some people want to be jokers, and some people just want to be the smartest person in the room. Now, how that relates to ancient archetypes, I can't say. I don't know.
What's funny is I think I hate philosophy. First of all, I just hate it. I despise philosophy. I think it's like
I'm the wrong guess, then, man.
Yeah, I love Gary's
those books.
This is the wrong class. This is advanced. I was looking for auto shop.
But I hear what Lord Mattias and Bacon are saying, and I think that there's some truth to that. But I think I kind of take Bear's track on this one, which is like, I'm playing a game. I don't want to think about it that far. And since I think philosophy is nothing but a bunch of crap that somebody throws on a wall and whatever sticks. Sure, that's what people believe at that time. I'm just like sitting here like, to be fair, great conversation. But when it comes to a game, I'm like, who thinks about a game this deeply? I get in a lot of arguments about games. And I'm like, if elves have pointed ears of the right length or something, what the heck?
Well, maybe if you gave a little more thought to the primordial archetypes in your gaming, Max, you wouldn't give a flying fuck with it.
Look, let's bring this back around.
True. I believe that stuff there, that there's truth to that primordial archetype and us, kind of getting our lizard brain going, when we're sitting at the table. I do believe there's a bit of truth that I just don't think about it.
I don't think you need to be a better game master. But again, the question was like, how does this happen? And
sure.
Bacon and I are just saying this is what we think is actually.
Yeah, and I think
it's a great conversation.
Took this off on a tangent. Like Bear gave, he challenged, I challenged back. We went way off on a tangent, but to bring it back around, how do they bring us together? I think that we're all in agreement that they do bring us together. We just see it at different levels.
Yeah. And again, listen, I'm not saying you're wrong, gents. Listen to my original argument. Not saying you're wrong. Just saying I don't care to go that deep into a hobby about rolling dice and pretending I'm an elf.
But we want you to care. We want you to
But I don't want to. It's the same reason I reject every other truism or wayism or thing. I reject them all. I'm a centrist. I can't help it. I'm Siddhartha. I walk the middle path and go, you got some good ideas, you got some good ideas. Let's see if we can bring them together and make one good idea out of all these good ideas, right? That's the difference.
Have you heard of the Aristotelian law of the excluded middle?
Jesus.
No, I'm sorry. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So you want me to piss off your audience with one simple statement there, Mr.
Sure. I was going to ask another, little follow-up here to get us back on track. But go ahead. Piss off the audience. That's what I need right now.
Okay, cool. I'm going to piss off half your audience on both sides with this one statement. Philosophy is questions that can never be answered, and religion is answers that can never be questioned. Discuss.
All right, that'll be on the next episode of... Whoa, Bear, what the hell is that?
Whoa. That's the lyrics to the Philosopher's Song from Monty Python. Now you can all make better jokes without them just falling back on Immanuel Kant all the time.
Thank you.
Let me know before you do that next time, because that sometimes gets people banned, and then I don't see what happens.
I want to get banned. Let me do it 5 times in a row. Anyway, back to the discussion.
Yeah,
sorry.
So I want to just want to bring it back to the gaming table a little bit here. True story. Great conversation. This is the type of conversation I want to see more of. Maybe I don't like philosophy. I'm not talking about that side of it, but that type of back and forth that they are having, this is what every segment should be on every one of these episodes. So anybody who's a future panelist, anyway, so can you just bring it back? I kind of already asked this question, but I'm going to ask it a little bit different way this time, just to bring it back. And this is for everybody. Can you guys recall a situation where overcoming a difficult encounter, characters, you guys as player characters at a table, overcoming a difficult encounter helped you understand a fellow player's outlook, maybe even outlook on life more clearly?
Yes. It was actually the beginning of my 10-year-long campaign in the 90s. I had been gaming with this guy for a few years, so I knew him. We weren't like close, but we became close, obviously, over the course of the decade. And since then, he was the best man at my wedding. But he wanted to play the paladin, and he always sort of was very not confident around me and my friends, because we were gearing up to go to college, and he was going straight from high school to the factory, so he always sort of felt less confident around us. And his character, it was more of a heathen dog adventure path style game, so it wasn't like an open table, open world. And his character discovered that his father may have been toiling with the dark arts, and maybe had allied with some vampire forces that were threatening the kingdom. So that was like a pretty traumatic thing, and the spotlight was on him. And I just sort of did it, because I just thought it would be cool, like a cool story, right? I saw a moment of hesitation, because I was like, oh crap, I just realized this kid is not a very confident person, right? And then it was like a switch went off, and all of a sudden he became Darius Stormbreaker, and was like this, like he took charge and knew what needed to do, and knew what how basically took the reins and started developing the plan to figure things out, all the while diving into his character's backstory and all that stuff. And I grew to respect my friend because I knew, despite some of his personal failings, I knew deep down he was just a really, really good guy. And I wouldn't say we became best friends because of that character, but it was because of that character. And this is to a point that Bear made earlier. I got to see a part of him that I didn't know existed. And whenever my friend made a mistake, I'd always remember, I know that's not him entirely, that there is a good guy inside there. You know what I mean? And I would remember that, and we would work through our issues, that, if that makes sense. I hope that answered your question.
Max, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Can you recall a situation where overcoming a difficult encounter together helped you understand a fellow player's outlook or outlook on life even more clearly?
I can only respond to that in the negative.
Okay.
That's the only way I can respond to that, which is basically a player that we played with for years would write massive backgrounds for his character. And then as a storyteller, you'd go, okay, well, there's all these great story hooks I'm going to bring into the thing. And every time we'd bring in the story hooks and create the scenarios or the situations based around his character's background, he'd get really upset. We'd play through, but you could see he was bothered and he'd get prickly by it. And then one day he snapped and just was like, just because my background doesn't mean I have to be part of the story. I just wrote that. So and he just went off on all of us. And that was when the day I went, I'm now done with this person as a gamer. I'll know them in life. And if we all wind up at the bar having a beer together because we have the same friends, beautiful, but they're not coming back to my games. Because what I learned or gleaned or understood about this person was they weren't participating in good faith. They weren't participating in a shared experience. It was about them and what they wanted, and everybody else can go fuck themselves. And people like that are not fun to play with. People like that break games, break groups, and even drive people out of the hobby because they're so difficult to deal with. Now, if you take someone who has less personality of fortitude or whatever you want to call it, temerity of spirit, and they deal with someone like that, they'll wilt, they'll retreat, and they'll possibly even just leave, like I said, leave the hobby forever and never come back. And that's heartbreaking to me because this hobby is for everyone. Everyone. But check your asshole at the door. That's the number one rule. Don't be an asshole. You can be a dick. I don't know why our society is so down on dicks, but assholes are the problem because they ruin it for everybody. So I've seen that. I've had a few experiences with people like that, and that's taught me about who they are as a person. And instead of making me feel closer to them or bonded to them, it did the exact opposite. It made me want just to distance myself and have nothing to do with them. And like Lord Mateus, I hope that answered the question.
I actually have a story that can go either way. I have one, where Bear, it was a situation where we had been gaming with this guy for a very long time, and it was a very personal confrontation that took place within the game that just, it made me cut ties. It was, we didn't really get along too well outside of game, and I tried and tried and tried in the game, and eventually he just started making decisions that were clearly to slight me. And so it was like, you know what, I'm not all about that. So I left. But on the other hand, I have a story about someone who I had gotten off on the wrong foot with in just conversationally, just completely off on the wrong foot. And we ended up playing a couple of games together, and it absolutely smoothed everything over. You understand where they're coming from, you understand their perspective, and that, that really helped sort of form that now friendship, but it was, not that prior.
Yeah, I mean, I was always the token Republican at a table. I mean, let's be honest, gaming is art to some degree, which means that it encourages a lot of more left-leaning people. I don't care. We're sitting at a table playing games. So it's kind of the token Republican. We all get along. We might make jokes about each other or something that happened in the news. But when we were at the table playing the game, we were at the table playing the game. We weren't talking about that other nonsense. That unfortunately changed at a point that I won't get into now. But yeah, it was that weird thing that, all types of people can sit there and play as long as you can respect the game and respect the table. All right. I think that we kind of beat that down with some philosophical mumbo jumbo and
Again, apologies.
no, that's good. No, I thought it sparked a really good conversation. What I think is going to be interesting is when people watch this later as a video, like, well, I thought you guys were talking about connecting with others. When did Jung and Kant and Descartes get in?
What's this bald idiot talking about?
For the record, I feel stupider, so that helps. I feel much dumber. So, we're good. I'm not even joking on that. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't go to this level. I haven't got the PhD to do it. So, well done.
Give yourself more credit.
I honestly haven't read philosophy. It's 2025. I haven't read philosophy in at least 20 years. I just got so fed up with it. That's why I have the stance that I do. I did read a bunch of it, but it was way back in the day. Anyway, segment 2 is going to be on fostering understanding and respect. After this first segment, I think we need some of that. We're going to talk about fostering understanding.
Whoa. Hang on. I'm going to be the guy that's going to jump up and say this all night long. I think we all respect each other just fine. Gentlemen, do we disagree or do we agree?
We agree.
Mateus, I have your cat.
I'm just kidding. Yes.
It's alive again. Agree.
So let's read. See, we already read Law Dog Super Chat. Thank you very much, Law Dog, for that. We have one more in here. Got to get to the chats. There we go. Actually, let's just knock all these out. Kevin Sullivan, new member. Thank you very much, Kevin Sullivan. Some guy named Bear the ex-GM Gen.
Some people wish I was an ex-GM. I'm telling you.
Bear the Gen ex-GM, thank you very much. Doc Flamingo, member from 9 months, says, greetings all. And Doc Flamingo also says, for the record, I'd rather starve than eat at Arby's. Great, more for me, sir. I give me that biggest roast beef sandwich that's so freaking oily and fatty that it just dissolves the bun, and I have to eat it with a fork and knife. Oh, yum.
I look forward to your funeral from the massive coronary you're going to have.
I haven't eaten at Arby's in many years, actually. They kept threatening when I was on Ramstein because the Burger King burned down that they were going to put an Arby's there. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be so fat. And it was never there by the time I left. So, all right. So did that. Okay, well, let's get ready for segment 2 here in a moment. So I will put that up on the screen. Right. If you think you have some presence and charisma, the ability to educate, entertain, and talk deep philosophy, a good AV setup, free from noise pollution, and interest in discussing tabletop RPGs in this format, join the Game Master Insight Discord, link you can find in the description, to stay tuned to future topics. Help us get to know you, and maybe we'll get you on the show to talk about your experiences. You could be like Bacon today. Bacon was the backup player. He was the designated hitter, and look what happened. He came on in here and just started knocking it out of the park. Or it's a foul ball. I don't know. I don't even know what field we're playing on, but I've already posted the July schedule, and it's starting to fill up quickly. So if one of those interests you, you should check it out. If you enjoy this discussion, please like this video and subscribe to all of the panelists' channel, which you can find in the description. All right, for the second segment, we will start with Lord Mattius. Sir, in what ways do cooperative goals and group-driven objectives foster meaningful understanding and respect between participants who may not otherwise interact? By participants who may not otherwise interact, I'm assuming like you're referring to the people who would probably be on opposite sides of the political spectrum, or just have different worldviews and different circles, and they just would never, but they sit down at the gaming table. So, well, I go to something I think I've heard you say, and I think is correct, is that at the end of the day, this is a team sport. And you do end up having to work together to whatever it is that you're doing. I think more broadly speaking, especially in today's day and age, especially as you get older and you have more obligations, one of the more challenging goals is making sure you all are able to coordinate your schedules to make it and actually have a regular game. And from my perspective, I actually have a lot of respect for those players who are willing to try to move heaven and earth to make sure they're there to game, to help
everyone at that table to have a good time and be able to participate, because it is a time commitment. We all know this. It's not like just pulling out your board game and playing for like an hour to 90 minutes. Like you're usually putting in at least 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours to play. So having that sort of team sport mentality, I think, goes a long way. And this isn't an example from anything recent in my gaming, but my son just started Little League, and he's very nervous about it, or like he was anyway, until he had his first game, and he did well. But he was very worried about it because there's certain things he does okay and things that he needs to work on. And he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to let the team down. And I said to him, I'm like, son, the only way you're going to let them down is if you don't show up and you don't give it your all. But if you are there every practice, every game, and you keep working on your fundamentals, this, that, and the other thing, you're going to get respect. And I think it's the same thing with the game. If you're showing up, kind of like to Bear's point about the guy he talked about, and you're only there for you, and you show up when you feel like it, or you're constantly causing problems because it is about you, and not about the team, the group, I think that's where you lose people and you ruin a potential connection, a lifelong connection. Because I saw somebody mention it in the chat. It might actually have been Crafty Matt. I've met a lot of my friends, my lifelong friends, are through this hobby, and because of like whatever it is that's happening at that table, and that respect that's kind of fostered. So I would say the team sport mentality is key to develop and foster that sort of thing. The respect.
Yeah, in chat, if he's still watching, Eric Smith is somebody that I met in the Air Force. I think he was in our Dungeons & Dragons campaign. He was definitely in my Earth Dawn game. I think he played in some of the other ones as well. I would say that personality-wise, especially back then, we didn't have much in common. But through gaming, now we're friends still. Like, when I first got to Germany, he was stationed out there still when he was in the Air Force. We hung out, we went on vacations and so on and so forth. And he basically helped take me around Europe to some degree. Absolutely. Those people who you wouldn't think otherwise that you'd be friends with or could be friends with, boom, you've got this one shared experience, and absolutely happens. So I'm going to follow up. What happens when two players with conflicting methods, and you can take that whatever you want. In my head, I visualize maybe somebody who likes to role play and talk everything through. Another guy just wants to beat it up. Another guy's trying to, find the tricks and the trait, whatever. But people with conflicting methods, they have to find some common ground to reach a quote unquote victory condition, defeat a puzzle, defeat a boss, solve whatever. So what happens when you kind of throw those people into that mix? Blah.
Well, that's actually a really good question, and this might actually get into some prescriptive sort of recommendations, right? I think as a game master, it's a good idea to identify those people, right? Because you're going to have the guy that wants to drink the beer, eat the Cheetos, roll the dice, scream, count the dead, and he's having a blast. He's like in this little world of like murder hobo, and then you're going to have right next to him is the thespian who wants to cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war after he's done with his soliloquy, right? And I think that's more of a game master responsibility to identify that and ensure that everyone has a moment. I mean, this is like advice we've all heard before. Give everyone a chance to kind of do the thing that they want to be able to do. As a player, though, I think it's a good idea. Again, that team sport mentality is to, give the next player to the player next to you some space to have that moment. Maybe you already had your soliloquy, let your beer guzzling Cheetos eating friend next to you charge into the next room. There was a guy, I remember, this was way back in the day. He did not role play, but he was having fun. Like, he really enjoyed it. And every time I asked him, he started acting like some sort of like hip hop star. I'm going to bust down the door, wave my 4-4 so my daddy don't hurt me no more. And then his dwarf would run in and we would all just be like, Jesus, dude, can you please just role play pretend to role play, and we did actually end up having to have a talk with him, and he stopped coming because I guess that's all he wanted to do was to roll the dice and count the points on his sheet. But I sort of feel like that's an edge case. That's an extreme example.
I don't know. I don't know if that's an edge case because we dealt with folks like that. Some came around and like, oh, my bad. Or I didn't even know this is how other people played. Again, I'm guessing he's gone now because he didn't respond earlier. But Eric was at that table where he was one of the people that helped guide other folks after we guided him into this style of play. I just think that some people on the flip side are like, nope, this is my style of play. That's all I'm going to do, and I'm out. I've done that before, even not being on that side of the fence of what you were just talking about there. So, yeah, I mean, I can see that happening. If I were him, I'd just be honest about it though and say, yeah, I guess this group's not for me. But do you guys have any? Oh, Eric's back. Well, we've been talking about you, Eric. Too late now. You're gonna have to rewind. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns for Lord Mattias?
No questions.
Wow. Okay, that was a simple one. Well, then let me just go over
solved
to
it.
You solved gaming.
Problem solved. Good night, everyone.
All right, folks. Fast show tonight. Good night.
All right. Well, then, Bacon, we'll just bring the question to you then. In what ways do cooperative goals and group-driven objectives foster meaningful understanding and respect between participants, so players who may not otherwise interact?
I think that there's how to say this? There's a quality to people who engage in this hobby that is very for the love of the game, right? We recognize that we want to grow it and we want to, and this is maybe a little off the beaten path of the question, but I really feel like this quality sort of precedes the ability of the game to bring people together with, long-standing campaigns or cooperative quests or leadership situations. Because look, there are some pretty crappy players out there. There are crappy GMs, but I would say generally speaking, there is, the hobby is generally possessed of a love of the game and just a desire to bring additional people in and show them the best and sort of allow them to grow into however it is that they want to role play or to just experience the type of role play that they like. And I think that there is definitely a quality of wanting to stand back and allow people to sort of grow into that space, at least in my experience, right? And I know my experience isn't everything. But I find that that's a prerequisite, I think, for the hobby to be able to behave in such a way so as to form these long-lasting relationships. That's what I'll say.
Most of these questions are about, learning about other players at the table, and they seem to be kind of redundant to me to some degree, but I think it's also partially intentional. But have you learned about the strengths and weaknesses, I'm going to go that way, of certain players in a manner that helped you either bring out their strength or cover their weakness as a person, but for the game at the table?
Are we talking about role play strengths and weaknesses or character strengths and weaknesses?
When you say character, you're not meaning the player character, you mean the personal character.
No, I mean, they're actually, lowercase c, their character, the nature of their person.
Actually rather lean towards the player side of it and the player's character, personal character.
Yes. There have been situations. So I tend to play as in character as I'm able in any given moment. And there's a lot of times where just doing that will allow me to sort of bring people in naturally. I will ask in character, what do you think? Or, those sorts of interactions where you get to involve more people at the table. I personally generally tend to be a very inclusive person with regard to the game and who's sitting at the table. I don't like a lot of spotlight hogging. Personally, I don't care if someone else wants to do it, but I don't do it myself. And so I'm more likely to sort of hand the baton off. And that is definitely my experience. And that, seeing how someone is approaching a situation or role playing, it lets me let them, or it lets me encourage them or sort of bring them in, maybe handhold just a little bit in order to sort of get out of them what I think they're going to find valuable at the table, just from sitting there and witnessing, who they are and how they play. So long answer, but the answer is yes.
Oh, we got time. You guys, anything you guys want to say into what Bacon was saying there? Anything to add? Any questions, comments, concerns for him?
I would just want to say I actually agree with your assessment about what that attitude of love of the game, love of the hobby that sort of precedes. It's like if those with that sort of deep love and appreciation for the hobby were all of a sudden to disappear, I don't know what would happen to the hobby. You know what I mean? Like the I don't think the casual gamers would take it to the next generation. You know what I mean? And there definitely is that sort of bifurcated. The people who are really into it, and I would argue those are the people who end up gravitating towards game master positions at the table. They're the ones that are interested in buying the new books and checking out new systems and stuff, right? So I do agree with you on that. I think that's
well. I know about the new books and the new systems. Sorry to cut you off, but maybe I got it a little bit wrong there, right? Like there is that sort of that pre-existing condition, but there's also the idea that. And this just now occurred to me in the moment listening to you speak. As a publisher, right? That would be both you, Bear and Lord Mattias. You want people to play your game. So just by the very nature of the fact that it's a group activity gives you the opportunity to, bring those people in, and you want them to play your games. You want as many people as possible to experience it. So I maybe gave the game itself a little bit of short shrift, but apologies for the interruptions. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's fine because that's actually a really good point too. I do think though it is especially since getting involved online with all you wonderful people, it's like a Herculean effort to take those conversations and bring them to my in-person gaming group table who are not all that interested in the conversations all that much, unless there's something very specific they're looking for, like how do I run Curse of Strahd correctly or something like that. Whatever, they'll Google it and then they'll read or watch and then they're done. I really think us YouTubers and some of the people on Twitter, we're a kind of a minority, I think, and it really is kind of incumbent upon us to take what's out there and give it to those who are not paying attention. You may disagree with that. I have a feeling Bear does. But I saw a look and I just assumed. My apologies. I was trying to give you a chance to yell at
that was Bear. That was your in, Bear. That was your in.
But I agree with you, Bacon.
Stop your grinning and drop your linen. Let's get down to brass tacks. So reality is this. I don't think the casuals are going to keep the hobby alive. I don't think the tourists that came in through COVID are already dropping out. We can see that. I can also see that the style of gaming they liked and made popular is dying. Clearly, everybody is down in viewing numbers. Even the immaculate Critical Role has lost viewers and lost, a lot of their cachet that they had. And I think that's a good thing. And I know this guy up here can't believe he's hearing me say this because he and I butt heads over all this sort of stuff all the time. This is the contraction before impact. This is the shedding of the chaff so we have the wheat. And that wheat will keep the hobby going forward in the future. I get the pleasure of seeing so many people now whose kids are taking up the mantle, or they're running games for their children, or their kids are playing games at high school. My best friend, who's been playing games with me since 1989, we met at a D&D game of all things. Second edition. For Christmas, they basically decided to save money this year. So they said, okay, well, everybody's going to give a gift to everyone. And one of the sons said, well, I'm going to cook Christmas dinner for everybody. And another one of the sons said, I'm going to do this, that. He painted Warhammer miniatures for each person. So they each had a character miniature. And then he said, well, all right, this is a guy who's refereed once in his life in like 1990. You know what I mean? Said, okay, I'm going to run a game. And he went and he ran a game for his family. So his wife, his two sons, and they had a great time. They loved it. And they're probably going to do it again this Christmas. I think that's how our gaming continues. I think that's how our hobby grows. Not through me selling PDFs or you selling books or someone selling miniatures on Etsy, but through the next generation being introduced to the hobby in a good and positive way. in a formative way, in a way that allows them to get a positive experience out of it, as opposed to the neckbeards at the store with the stinky pits and all that nonsense, or the girls who go to the game place and just get stared at and feel uncomfortable and never come back. But in those really, really, really intimate spaces with people who are good to each other. Barring that, to tie on to what you said, Lord Mateus, we have the YouTube family. We have the live plays. Now, I run a lot of games live. And I will always get people in the comments who are like, oh, Bear's a control freak, Bear's of this, Bear's of that. They love to talk shit about me. But if you look at the people playing my games, they always come back. The players are always.
Oh, wait, that was I'm out.
Yeah, there you go. And as a result of that, that's all that matters to me. Because they're having fun, they're enjoying the game. They may go and run a game with their friends. Some of them already do play games with their friends. That's what matters. Not the flybys and the commentaries and the casuals and the tourists and the supreme intense, one-way truismists or any of that. It's the people having fun, the people spreading the fun, and the people enjoying themselves. That's what keeps our hobby alive. Will it die off? Hey, it might. Once upon a time, stick and wheel was the most popular goddamn thing in the world. When was the last time you saw a kid rolling a wheel down the street with a stick, right? So
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay, listen, how you spend your weekend chasing rabbits is your business. But the point is that there's always a potential we could lose it. There's always a potential it could die off. But I think a lot of us are going to be in the old age home arguing about the nurse stole my dice. That's just the way it's going to be. So
absolutely.
We're absolutely forgetting what happened last session because we played. I don't remember playing. I remember, and I got the score.
I have to watch before we play tomorrow. I have to watch the last session because all I remember is I tried to put my butt in a chair. Everything else before and after that, I don't remember.
Ball and Cup was a whole other level, dude. Fish tank rings, right? Like whatever. The point is that fads come and go. But here we are 50 years into this hobby. And we continue to, as one of them, Doc, let's say about you, brother, we continue to go. So I think it's a good thing. We build friendships, we build relationships, we build life out of it. I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore, so I'm just going to shut up and smoke my vape.
I agree with it.
It's a delicious vape. All right, host man, back to you.
I don't even have a follow-up for you. Because they're all basically the same thing. So I'm just going to ask you essentially the same follow-up. Have you gained a new respect and new understanding of a player at your table based on how he played a character in the game? As in, I now get this person more, especially if it's somebody who's on an opposite or different side of the fence. And you're like, okay, you know what? Before I thought people who thought like that are weird. I still think they're weird, but at least I understand better now or something like that.
Who's that for?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were still on bacon, but okay.
Oh, wait. Was that follow? Did I not ask you the question?
Follow up, man.
No, you got me. You got a follow up. I think we just started interacting and kind of lost track.
Okay. Well, you know what?
Okay.
I'm going to
ask me that question again because I thought you were asking bacon, so I was kind of like a little bit. So
y'all can answer then at that point because I don't even remember what I asked. Something about respect and.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. There have been people I have played with, especially the best example of that was when we used to LARP, the Vampire LARP in the 90s in Vancouver, or even the one here in Montreal. There was a ability to see people think on their feet, to see people roll with chaos situations and come out of it smelling like a rose or at least standing on top of the shit pile. And sometimes the shit pile hitting them. There was this one guy, I swear to God, we were playing Vampire, and we knew there was a plot against the prince, so we were investigating. We grabbed this one venture we suspected was involved, and we mental challenged him on all the questions we kept interrogating him on so much. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when you bid a trait in the LARP, Mind's Eye Theater, and you lose the challenge, you drop a trait. So by the time we got to like the 7th question, he's just like, guys, I am the droids you're looking for. Just ask me anything. I have no traits left. And we were just like, oh, God damn. Like, we just, and he was like, absolutely, he didn't just try and like, hornswoggle us or anything. He was just like, straight up, guys, you got me. Just ask me anything my character has to tell you right now. Showed a not a responsibility, but a maturity about the game, as opposed to trying to sneak us. He was just straight up honest so we could continue the plot and move forward, which I thought was a really fun thing. So I gained respect for him.
Okay. Awesome. Well, apparently, I don't know what today's... all my friends from the old Earth Dawn days. Actually, Azurim didn't play in the Earth Dawn game. He was in the Palladium Fantasy game. He is the paladin that died, and I turned into a zombie, and still is angry today. Good to see you, Azurim. All right. So, Bear, let me... hold on.
Ooh, someone's got a drink. Well done.
Somebody's got a drink. Thing is he didn't... I don't even have to drink to forget the stream. Ask anybody who sends a comment 3 days after I've streamed one of the Sunday streams, like, what you said about such and such was really stupid. What did I say? I don't remember. So, all right. So Polyrobotics for $50 says, Max won't remember the stream due to this. I'll go with that. I'm going to say that, yeah, it's the money that's the problem. So if you guys want me to forget anything, I saw nothing. I'll be Sergeant Schultz here for you if you want to send $50. But thank you, Polyrobotics. Appreciate that. Let me get my booze ready. So the real question for you, Bear, because we're gonna go backward for you. Apparently, is in what ways do cooperative goals and group-driven objectives in a game foster a meaningful understanding and respect between the players who may not otherwise interact? And what I would like for you, if you're okay with this, unless you already have kind of an answer thought of, is I would like you to kind of look more for the passive player versus the alpha player, and how a lot of tables, they don't interact because the passive player just sits there and the alpha is like me, 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 me. I'm not going to force you to answer it that way if you don't want to.
I literally have no experience. I wish I could. I wish I could say, we were all sitting at the table and then this problem came up and then that one guy gave us a solution. We beat the monster and everybody started to slow clap. I wish I had that story. I don't. I have never played with passive people unless they were someone's girlfriend who got dragged to the table and then half of them became adamant gamers because they really got into it, or Malachi. So I really don't have much to say about that. To be honest, I don't have anything I can relate to.
Well, then you don't have to take
passive out of it, and we just say the players in general.
Sure. We'll go to that. I was just hoping for a different perspective here, but that's totally fine. If you don't have that experience, you don't have that experience. Yeah, just go with a couple of players. Then we'll add Polyrobotics. Thank you.
He's leading the witness. No, but I think in general, problem solving. It goes back to the team sports thing, right? I can guarantee you, every person I have ever seen be a complete ponce, idiot, schmuck at a gaming table didn't play team sports. Was an only child. One of these factors where the universe was all about them and no one else came into play. Everybody I've seen who played team sports, I've seen when they're in the game, they'll take a hit for someone else. They'll be that classic story of, the guy says, hey, listen, can I use my rod of teleport to teleport the group? And but someone has to stay and hold the rod open. Who's that going to be? Who's going to get the short strip? And the guy going, me. I'm going to be the guy that does it. That I've seen. I've seen things like that in games. And I think those are really, really good. And I think those are really, really important because they show the collective communal nature of a team. And that's, Crafty Matt talks about this. You get a bunch of guys together who like something, they're going to be friends. Be it golf, be it stick and wheel, be it D&D. So once you get a bunch of people together with a common cause, most of them are going to rise to the cause. They're not going to treat role-playing. So here's a good example. When you work in a corporate environment, which I'm sure all of us have at some point or another, you've been stuck on a team project where one person is the alpha leading the project, one person's doing everything to get it done, and 4 people are just waiting for you to do all the work. Or maybe in university you had that experience, whatever the case may be. I've never seen that at a role-playing table. I've never seen when a group problem comes up, not everyone have an opinion or a thought or a contribution to make to the solution. As much as I hate heists, and I would never run a heist game like the ones WotC put out or anything else, it's kind of like that. it's kind of like they all want to be Ocean's 11 all of a sudden. They all want to be working together to solve the goal and have their moment and do their cool thing because, wait, I have the blah, 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 blah on my sheet, so we could use that to maybe do this and this. Yeah, and that ties into my thing. And off they go to the races. So I think that would be a really good thing you learn from games about people is that when push comes to shove,
I'm gonna flip the script on you a little bit.
Oh,
because I know you like more heroic games. You definitely talked about people standing up and kind of somebody self-sacrifice, so to speak. There.
No.
Have you in character, or from how some? Oh my God, I cannot talk. My God, the whiskey's going to my head.
The whiskey.
How did I write it down here? So yeah, what about when a player as character makes a dick move, but it also kind of taught you something about the player that as you watched that, or maybe a few of those, you started learning that this person actually isn't as heroic is not the word I want to use because we're talking about real people, but it isn't the good person or necessarily the good person you thought. Maybe somebody you got to keep your eye on a little more.
Me
Do
and
tell?
Torg. Me and Torg. I was playing a cyber sorcerer and I had this spell called Foe Blast. And Foe Blast did area effect damage. And I didn't give a fuck that it did area effect damage. And I kept telling them it's going to do area effect damage, but it's my best spell and I'm going to use it. And I'm going to use it on the bad guy. And if you're in the range, drink. If you're going to use it in my range, tough shit. Oh, but there's a line here in the spell that says, if you submit to me and become submissive, you will take no damage. So clearly the best way for us to do this is for you to submit to me.
Okay, so that's the player set. But what did that teach him something about you as a player?
It taught all of them, don't fuck with me. Like that was the thing. They had me as a referee, so they knew that I was all about team dynamic and
I gotcha.
and all that shit. Some of them were playing Torg, and the only character that was any interest me was this one. And very quickly they became like, oh fuck, we gotta really not trust him and keep him on a short leash because I was the what's that character? Avon from Blake 7.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
You know? And that was fun for me. But that's the difference because and this takes us back to the archetype stuff. When I role play, I was an actor for 20 plus years. I'm trying to find a character to play, something that's different, that challenges me, that's outside my wheelhouse, that doesn't feel good, that I have to find a way to play. So I would go for things like that. And then I realized I didn't like playing. So I just became a lifetime GM and I was much fucking happier.
That's weird. I'm going to read the super chat here. To me, that's a little weird because I did enjoy game mastering, but now that I'm back at being a player, it's almost like I don't want to be a game master ever again. I don't know why, but maybe it's because I was the forever GM for the longest time. But I right now am really enjoying being back in the player role. With that said, apparently I have to drink more whiskey. Now, just so folks know, you're not going to be able to get me trashed because I will pace them out through the segments. Polyrobotics knows this already as well. But just in case somebody's like, ooh, I'm going to donate $50 constantly. No, I will not have more than one per segment. Hold on. I got cats fighting.
Now, you want to talk about primal response? Hang on, you want to talk about primal response? My chest went cold right there when I heard that.
So Nova Cat does not know how to play.
Immediately, one of my boys is here. The other boy's probably in my bedroom. I'm like,
yep, I have one laying here next to me. I had to check. Like, are we okay over here?
Yeah, that feeling, right? That feeling of like, oh shit.
So
that's what I was
it's the saber-toothed tiger coming for you, Bear.
It's the fight, flight, or freeze. I was talking about this earlier. This is the thing, right?
So Nova Cat doesn't know how to play. He's a kind of a special needs cat. He doesn't know how to play. Plus, he has extra long teeth. So when she plays with Little Guy, which is actually even bigger than Nova Cat, they have a fun time. When Nova Cat does it, she screams. So, but it seems like they're doing their thing now. So anyway, whiskey, I will drink that in just a moment. What I was just saying a moment ago is like, I will drink this one pretty quickly here, but no, Joe, don't donate a whole ton of money or you're going to be kind of bored because you're going to be waiting for me to drink those. But Polyrobotics, thank you very much for the $50. Obviously, this means since I've got two of these, we're going to have a giveaway in segment 5 tonight. And I got one more to read.
Rigged.
Nathaniel's going to be so hungover tomorrow. That's later on in the day. Even if I had a bunch of these things, it's later in the day. I'll drink some Gatorade, have some Advil, and be fine.
And Nora will make him go sweat it out doing some yard work.
Or that, or Okinawa has these great little pills, man. You take like 13 of them or whatever it is before you drink, you don't get a hangover. I don't know what it is, but they are literally magic pills as far as I'm concerned. You don't get a hangover. But thank you, Ludog. All right, so now that apparently everybody heard the cats going nuts, except for my wife.
I want to answer one thing really quickly because they were making jokes about did the gaming ruin the actor? Did the actor ruin the gaming? Whatever that whole thing was. No, the actor just figured out he was a director.
Ooh, look at that. Okay, getting back on topic here while I pour this, is there anything in the terms of fostering understanding and respect based on play turning into reality? Anything that you guys have on that or that you want to follow up with since we had a little bit of distraction there?
I need whiskey.
I'd like a bourbon, but I have an early day tomorrow and a late evening. So
well.
Tomorrow night, though, I'll drink to max.
Well, I have to drink to polyrobotics. There we go. I won't be able to read now. Into the hangar is wild these days. Lots of. Also, obviously, they got pills, they got drinks, they got just not being a little. You know what? This is to polyrobotics for $50, but I'll give that one also to a nerd's nerd. That was good. That was good. There you go. Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we'll get ready to go on to the next segment then, which is going to be. What's that?
So look at that. We're knocking them out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you guys got scared after getting so deep in that first segment, segment.
We clearly established our ground.
There you go.
We know where we all stand, so there's no need to go back into that. So now it's you better ask. You know what? Hang on. Ask better questions, Max. How you like them apples? I'll flip the script on you.
Nah.
Okay, fair enough.
If I did that, then you might actually enjoy the show. So lasting bonds will be the next one, because as we started talking about earlier, that some people have been friends for a long time. Two of them have popped up in the chat today. I've known Azure Worm since I was in the Air Force. I've known Eric Smith, which since I was in the Air Force as well. That goes back to the 90s. So yeah, Heathen Dog I met when I was in the Air Force. A friend even longer than that on my Discord, Von Zark. We were playing BattleTech and so forth in I don't even know what year we started. 89, I think, is when I met him. Maybe 88, something like that. Yeah. So, these bonds, and I don't even live around that area anymore. And we pretty much, outside of the fact that we played Dungeons and Dragons and TMNT and BattleTech together, he and I, especially at that time, had nothing in common. Nothing at all. So, yeah. And here we are 40, whatever years later, 30, 40 years later. And we're still great friends. So we'll be talking about that in the next one. Let me see if there are any super chats that I missed that were in Biggins. I don't think so, but I think there are a couple more memberships popped in, so I'll check those out. Yep, Thruxus became a new member. Thank you, Thruxus. Appreciate that. And of course, we have. What's that?
Why? Nothing. Just wondering why Agile Monk's got a mood to poke me with a stick tonight. I don't know what I did to him, but there he is.
Oh, Agile Monk's been poking everybody. He's poking me as well. So he jumped in poking me.
My name is Bear. Just saying that for a record.
And yes, that was definitely a cat. Again, it's weird because when little guy, who's the bigger cat, plays, no big deal. They have fun. When Nova Cat does it, she screams like a banshee. Now, to be fair, he's ripped fur off of her before too. So, all right. That's all I had for those chats. So let's get this up here. Oops, I got to click the right button. Oop. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the video's description for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I just got done talking with a gentleman today while I was standing in line for the third time to get my real ID. And he was talking about the Wounded Warrior Project and the good that it did for him. So, I'm not going to tell the story right now, but it's a somewhat interesting one. But it has been known to help people. I've talked with multiple people that the Wounded Warrior Project has been a wonderful charity to support them. So please check them out. And of course, if you enjoy this discussion, please like this video and subscribe to all the panelist channels, which you can find in the description. All right. Well, for segment 3, we start with the new guy. All right, Bacon, are you ready for your own first question?
No shot. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Many see taking TTRPGs mainstream as a way to boost production values and introduce more people to the hobby. Okay, there's an introduction there. Critics were... Wait a minute.
I don't think I got this question.
No, this is actually last week's question. Why do I not have... Oh, my God. Hold on, let me scroll to the top. I was like, that looks familiar. That was from last week or 2 weeks ago.
Note to self: if I'm ever hanging out with Max Liao in person, 2 drinks. That's all I'm going to need to get him.
All right. No, that's weird because this because I have it up here. It should have gone down there. I don't know how it didn't, but to be fair, I'll be honest. I took a nap before the stream and I was running late. But you know, no excuses. I run a pro show here, so this is the professionalism you get. All right, so Bacon, how do the enduring arcs of a long-running campaign promote lasting bonds between participants, and can these deep connections alter how players perceive one another beyond the table?
The short answer is yes, but the long answer is over the course of a long-running campaign, you get to see different sides of other people who you might not necessarily get to see in another situation. So, and this kind of marries up to something that Bear was saying earlier. You get to see how creative they are, especially with creative problem solving. You get to see how compassionate they are, funny. You get to see the leadership roles that they step into. And additionally, you also get to see them fail repeatedly and how they choose to accept that failure and how they choose to proceed from that failure. And I think that getting these insights for anyone, they really, they're very important in establishing a long-term relationship and maintaining a long-term relationship. You can sort of gauge from if you have bad news to give someone who you've been playing with, you can kind of gauge how they're going to take the news dependent on how you've seen them act in the game. Sometimes, not all the time. But I think that because you get this insight with playing with people around the table, it really does help with those long-term relationships. It's a short one this time. Sorry.
No, it's good. You know, it's funny because I'm scrolling through the follow-up questions that I wrote. All the follow-up questions are on topic, just not that primary one. So I didn't pick one to ask you directly, so let's just pick one right here. I think you actually, something you said kind of leads into this one. Can you share an instance where recalling a past campaign, or by virtue of being in a campaign and some things that happened there, help resolve an out-of-game conflict or misunderstanding?
Oh, yeah. In fact, that game that I cited earlier about how we had gotten off on the wrong foot. But then, and this maybe it's not about long-term play necessarily. It was about watching them step into the game alongside me and sort of putting that very real disagreement to the side for the sake of playing and for the sake of cooperation and for the sake of finding that common ground. It's a very recent experience, but it's one that I think that'll stick with me forever because it was a very intense disagreement. And then we just played a game or two, and that was it. It was done. Hatchet buried.
Okay. Anything you guys want to say about his answer or his follow-up there? Continue the conversation on, or?
Actually, yeah. Well, I wanted to bounce off of that to kind of, I guess, answer my take on the question. I don't really know if I can add anything to it other than I agree with what Bacon was saying, because I think especially when you're new to the game, you're going to put a little bit or a lot of yourself into your first handful of characters. I think some of us old timers, us veterans, I mean, we're more comfortable stepping outside of our skin and doing something a little different, or very different from who we really are. But when you get to see someone do that, you do see and their interactions with and overcoming these similar obstacles. Again, going back to what I said at the very beginning of the stream, they're engaging in something that seems very real to them because of this like deep connection they're having with this archetype, whatever you want to call it, childhood fantasy, whatever. And it's allowing them to be something greater than that, what they would usually be. And I think through that you do learn something. I'm going to take, I think, a more cautious approach though, because like I said, going back to my buddy who played the paladin, yeah, I saw the goodness in him. But in real life, he made quite a few mistakes, right? I just knew it was there. So I wouldn't necessarily say like D&D is going to like reveal all to you, but sure. I do think, especially when you're doing this like 3-4 hour sessions weekly, in this like shared experience, the shared world, the shared story that you guys have been collaborating, working with, all you are putting yourself in there, they're putting themselves in there into this mix. And I think that might be part of the reason why it has like this quasi reality. It's you're creating something kind of like an artist creates something, it's going to be personal. Right. Actually I'm on the verge of starting to ramble here, so I'll just shut up.
Well, that's one of the things that Kevin Simbita says, that role playing is personal. And I got to be honest, I never looked at it that way before, but by him saying that over and over again, to some degree, don't get silly, folks. To some degree, I've softened my stance a little bit on some things that I might normally say, nope, that's got to go. That's dumb, clown shoes, whatever. Get out of here. When I say soften my stance, so I want to be clear, that doesn't mean I agree with it or that I think that it's good, necessarily good for the hobby, but maybe I won't rail on it so hard. So,
what has Nora done to you?
She just fed the cats.
No, to you.
No, she just.
I agree with that, Max. The way that I tend to phrase it is that it's an individual experience in a group setting.
Okay. See, I disagree with that. I think it's a group experience. I really think there's what is happening. Like I said earlier, Bob the accountant really did save Eric from marketing's life last weekend. In their minds, that actually happened. Not like actual happened, but you know what I mean? They had that experience.
Nerds.
I see what you're saying, and I'll allow it.
Okay.
I owe you a bit more of an explanation, I think, and I don't know if sidetracking that direction is the best use of the time.
Yeah, we don't have to go down
let me ask Bear the question first, and then if it leans into that again, by all means, like this is supposed to be a discussion, so I'm open to the discussions you guys have as long as it's on topic. So, but let's get Bear a chance to answer the question first, and then we'll see if that pops back into that. So how do the enduring arc, so the point of this question is say like, hey, when you're sitting at a table with somebody for a long time and you're going through the campaign and you're sharing Tomb of Annihilation or the Pendrick cycle or whatever together, so how does the long-term campaign promote lasting bonds between participants, and can these deep connections alter how players perceive one another beyond the game table?
Senator, I yield my time to the gentleman from Bacon to continue the thought that he had that was very interesting, and I wanted to hear the rest of.
There you go.
Okay.
Am I continuing the thought? Or
that's how you get yourself uninvited to future shows, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, to answer your question real quick, but then I do want to go back to what Bacon was saying because it was interesting. You don't want to say you just do, but you just do, kind of, Like the whole idea of spending all this time together, problem solving, going through that. Look, I've seen players cry, literally, grown-ass men tear up over something happening in game, right? I've seen people, get angry and leave a room and go have a cigarette and then come back going, sorry guys, I was really invested and I got mad. But no one loses sight of the fact that it is a collective group doing something together, and your individualism may make the collective better, but Sometimes it can get in the way. Sometimes it can help. And as the group plays together and longer, they're going to learn how to work better together as a group. And then you can take them out of that game and they'll work really great as a group doing something else. I mean, we used to go play softball with the Vampire LARP in the summer, and you knew who was in the same clan based on how they played the game. They just all worked together. Or alternately, you learn to make fun of each other endlessly for the stuff that you did that was dumb and you all thought was hilarious that, your character did X, Y, and Z. So I think ultimately, and I know this is kind of like a odd way to answer the question, but you know me, I like to pick on your questions. Long-term play, long-term arc, long-term story will create understanding between the players. It is inevitable. It is unavoidable. And any player that does not gain that benefit from it tends to, they have that harsh expression, the trash takes itself out. Well, they tend to exit from it because it's uncomfortable for them. Now, how they exit will be the issue always. If they just have the maturity to go, it's not for me, sorry, to, causing all this trouble until everybody's like, they don't want them back around anymore. But if you play long enough, you'll wind up with a solid group of people who enjoy playing together, enjoy helping, working, growing, learning. And then if you're in the same room and not on YouTube, you can all go to the Waffle House, and have a fight or something. I don't know what you guys do.
I want to double down on something here specifically for you because you like to poo-poo all my questions.
I do.
No, what I want to double down on here because I found this to be a question that, from my perspective, was actually hard to answer because I focused on something that maybe you guys didn't as much. So I'm gonna double down. By the way, this is for everybody but Bear Start. I want to ask or find out, did anything within the game itself, not the players sitting at the table playing it, but within the game itself, the campaign, the story, a big bad at the end, a riddle, oh my God, we came to the end and saved the princess, whatever it happens to be, did anything there, something about the game or the collection of all of that, help to foster, create, or even destroy a bond, a real world bond? Not just the players sharing the experience, but the impact of what happened in the game itself. Has that ever added to or taken away from the player bond, so to speak?
No. Short answer. Final answer, Regis. No.
Okay. Well, Lord Matty, sounds like you wanted to say yes.
Yeah, I think so. It actually goes back to that 10-year campaign. Two examples, and I think this was actually the real start. I didn't go into too much details because I didn't know how much detail you want. So, like I said, he stepped in. My buddy all of a sudden became Darius Stormbreaker, the young paladin, and he was off. It's when I described like a dream that his character had, where it was revealed this potential that his father was corrupt and all that stuff. And I did it from the perspective of a child, like he may have witnessed it. So I was just like, this vampire this dark man is kissing your mommy on the neck too hard, and you see her bleeding. And my buddy just looked at me and just started like screaming, like, what? And he immediately got up, went outside, because I had pulled everyone into separate rooms, went outside, and he just started like, guys, this is what we got to do. It was like this moment. Later on in that campaign, we invited this guy to join us, and he was one of these edgelord types who was second edition D&D, made a fighter thief half elf with a red beard because he's trying to hide his elven heritage. This should sound familiar to people.
Half elven, what are you doing here?
He calls himself Tansis, and I was like,
Tansis,
okay,
they are my favorite 70s rock band. I love Tansis.
Hello, my wayward elf.
He was the troublemaker, constantly foiling plans and plots and whatnot. And we had this moment, just to frustrate everybody, right? And so he had this moment where he went off by himself to try to get treasure, bumped into the vampire lord, and he immediately, to try to save his skin, said, "I'll join you." So I was like, okay. So I had him be bitten and killed. And then I said, go ahead. Here's the monster manual entry for a vampire. Convert your character to this. Keep all your skills at whatever. So he spent he must have spent like an hour. And everybody else is sitting there. They're trying not to metagame, but they saw all this go down. And so they're going through. He finally cues me and tells me he's ready to go. And he attacks the party, but he's trying to be all cool about it and trying to see if he could get them to join him and stuff like that. Now, this up to this point, like I said, my buddy was trying to be the leader, but they were still high school kid friends, and they would bicker and argue. I had never seen a group of people all of a sudden become so damned unified and they slaughtered this guy's vampire character. Yeah, he never came back. So a bond was definitely formed. Like everyone recognized, like we're here for a game, for this experience we were having, and everyone had a lot more respect for my buddy who was playing the paladin, and he who, like I said earlier, did not have a whole lot of confidence, all of a sudden had more confidence as our friend, knowing that everybody else had his back when Goofball was being Mr. Edgelord. So I hope that answered your question.
Sure.
But I have had that. That's the one experience that really comes to mind.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say one here, and then we'll let Bacon go into what he wanted to talk about a little earlier. And that, well, Bacon, I thought you and both you and Bear said no, that you really hadn't had that experience.
No, yeah, I'm going to bookend that awesome story with a no.
Okay. So when I was in Korea, some of the folks like Azure Worm and Eric may have heard the story when I was on Andrews. When I was in Korea, I played in a vampire game where I was a Nosferatu shock rocker. I decided I actually wanted to write the lyrics for the album. And I did. And our game master, let me phrase that. Our dungeon master, I want to be very clear about this, for our D&D game, didn't like my lyrics. And even though I was in the headspace of my character when I wrote those, he actually ended up having me go to my first sergeant to explain why I was writing this stuff, because, he was worried that I was going to kill somebody or go crazy in the dorms or whatever. And I'm like, this is for a character. I actually still have the lyrics to this day. I think they're in my bedroom, but in a folder. But that's, they weren't even good. It isn't like I wrote like great poetry, just really dark. They're just words that rhymed, and what happens if I backmask a religious or a biblical verse or something like that, kind of thing. That's all I did. And when I did it in character, I can't do it now, but I did the whole like that. And he was like, "Dude, what is wrong with you?" Now, mind you, this guy wrote for Polyhedron magazine, apparently. He was about 6'6". This is a big dude. And apparently this somehow scared him or something, to the point where he's like, I'm not sitting at this game with you anymore if this is what... Like, whoa, what the hell? And it caused a rift. Go ahead, Bear.
Well, before we get to Bacon, the only thing I can say to that is, Dad, no one wants to hear your stupid Vietnam stories. All right, thank you. Bacon, it's all yours, baby. No, it's a good story, man. I'm just fun.
No, go ahead. That's really the extent of the story. But it caused a rift between him in his D&D game. He definitely became a little bit more antagonistic towards me. Admittedly, I became way more antagonistic towards him. So, and if you heard me ever talk about me playing games in Korea, not the best time of my life, mostly due to this guy. But that's one of those I'd say was not my fault. Anyway, all right, Bacon, the floor is yours to talk about what you want to talk about earlier.
Oh, I was just going to get into the whole individual experience in a group setting thing. I don't know if the time has passed. That's okay. But
go ahead.
But to get into it, Lord Mattias, the reason that I say that is because you experience certain things in the headspace of your character that no one else does, right? So you experience the emotion, the thought process, because even now as we're sitting here, we're going through thoughts in our heads that we're not sharing. We're prepping our answers, where there's other things that we're thinking about. And so that part of the experience is individual, as well as everything that you imagine. Whether or not you are going to occupy the same reality in the imagined space, but the desk in the corner is going to be different for everyone at the table. The apple in the basket is going to be different for everyone at the table. So in that regard, it is a very individual experience because you're the only one inside your head, right? And you can communicate things as well as you can, but you're never going to get someone else to that same image, in my view.
That's totally fair, and I get what you're saying. To kind of explain my point a little bit better, because I was a little rambly earlier. Have you ever been in like a writing class and do like an exercise where you write a paragraph and then you pass it off to someone else and then they write?
Sure, yeah.
I sort of feel like, and then at the end of the day, you have this thing that you've created. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but maybe you're a little proud of it. That's kind of how I see the game, where everyone's kind of contributing to this thing, and the finished product that everybody sees, that's the shared space, and that's what everyone's really talking about, and that's what everyone's really excited about. And to me, that is the experience. And like you said, the desk is going to be different in my head versus your head, but there's still a desk. There's still this thing that's outside.
Yes. Yeah. And there's definitely a group collaborative component to it. And I'm not denying that. And I don't even think that both of our approaches are wrong. Like I think you can think both at the same time.
Oh no, I honestly, you and Barry, I'm throwing you a bone here. You and I are kind of being a little bit pedantic, I think, here.
I think so too. Yes, I think so too. But that's my middle name. So.
I mean, literally, you two just had is the color blue to you the color blue to me conversation. So think about that for a moment, gentlemen.
Well, color is actually a type of quality.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop.
I'm done.
By the way, Dead or Alive is a really dark song. It has the word dead in it.
I'll make it famous.
You make it famous. Da, 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 da. Okay, anyway. Actually, that's a really good album because it's not the more published stuff. I actually like the Young Guns album.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are we on number one?
All right.
Quick, let's talk about Nickelback.
No. Okay, anything else you guys wanted to talk about? Anything left on the table here in terms of creating lasting bonds between players based on things that happen at the table or in the game? Go ahead.
Yes. In one of my old friend of mine who I don't talk to anymore because his girlfriend hates me, and well, he figured out pussy was better than my friendship. Can't blame him. Can't blame him.
Ask Ethan Dog about that one too.
But anyway, he used to play in our games, and I wound up creating an entire within my fantasy world the concept of the Kalenites, where this entire thing I created just for him, so that he could have this thing to do, which is he would sit there and just take notes the entire game. He'd role play, he'd interact, but he would take notes. And then the next session, we'd always start with him reading his notes. And the first time he did it, all the players were, yeah, but you forgot about this. Yeah, but you forgot about that. He goes, these are the notes that my character thought were important. Mm-hmm. And they were all like, oh, shit. And it changed their perspective on things because they realized some of the shit they thought was important, he didn't think was important. And as a result, he glazed over it where they had it in autistic detail in their heads. But some of the things he thought were important, they didn't even notice. And more than once, it would come back to save their ass that he noticed a detail that they completely missed because they were too busy thinking about how they were going to do their next big thing, or have their big moment. And I think that was a really fun thing. And it showed how, even though it's a group experience, Lord Mateus, and even though it's a group of individuals having a group experience, Bacon, all of those individuals combine together to make a greater whole with the strengths that they bring.
See, so you can do both.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, so Bear, we had players, the occasional player that really liked to write, kind of write down the background of what happened, like the last session and so forth. And he did the same thing. He always did it from his character's perspective and be hilarious because he'd read out, so what happened last time? Well, this happened, that happened, this other weird thing. No, that isn't what happened. Yes, it is. And I actually like it when they do it more in character versus just the rote bullet point. Although in our game, we kind of need the bullet point because it's so long.
Are you talking about Codex Albana?
Yeah.
Yeah. You are all, and I say this with all the love in my heart for all the players, the worst period note period takers period I have ever seen.
He's not wrong.
Invested in the game. You're all like, your characters are there and you're playing them to the hilt and you're ready to go. Next session. All right. So who wants to tell us what happened last session? It's insane.
He's not wrong. I hate to say it, but he's not wrong at all. He's absolutely right about that. Yeah. Well, actually, one of my 3 things I'll just give you right now, since I keep forgetting to type it to you, is we were supposed to, in this episode 0, we were supposed to go get a crown. We're not like episode 10 or something. We haven't even talked about going to get a crown.
Because the crown is with the Witch Queen of Brooka.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That must be one of those notes I didn't take.
Yeah, I believe it was in the City of the Weird Women that you learned that. Or it might have been on Ambria.
Let's be honest. That adventure doesn't count.
that was the gas leak adventure. This is what friendship and bonding is all about, because none of you get what we're talking about, but we think this shit's fucking hilarious. Yep. So this is what happens when a bunch of people who play together hang around people who didn't play in the game. They're going to talk about shit they did, and they're going to laugh, and they're going to have a good time, and they're going to bond over it, and everybody else is going to go, what the fuck are you talking about?
It goes one step
cares about your stupid Vietnam stories.
Boom. Bye. No, Heathen Dog and Garthon back in the day did an what was the segment 3 that they called the RNG segment, where they talked about that. Nobody cares about your stupid gaming story. And to be honest, you're right. Most of you people out there, like, whatever, just get on to the next topic. And I get it. I absolutely get it. When other people do that, I'm like, ha ha ha, yeah, that's so funny. You guys had some sort of shared experience there that probably has meaning to you, but just sounded really dumb to me. Absolutely get that. People need to stop sharing their war stories. All right, so let's get ready to go into the final segment, talking about creating new perspectives. What is that about? I don't even know what that's about. Okay, I got it. This is the one that got everybody spun up, because this is where it's like, we learn to be diverse and accept people for who they are and all that other kind of nonsense. Or actually, maybe it's a good thing. Remember, I said I was the token Republican. How was I allowed to be at a table with a whole bunch of now you call them woke, but at that time, progressive Democrats? Well, because 1, we didn't talk about that, and 2, we are creating new perspectives, which we'll talk about in the next segment.
Break. Yeah, there we go. I was worried.
What's that?
Oh, God. I thought you were going to miss your segment break, and I was worried for you.
No. I'm good. Did we get any super chats this time? We got... Athenia's not going to be hungover, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but Polyrobotic said, cat fight!
Yeah, we did.
You are correct. All right, then we got nothing last segment, so I think we are ready to move on here. Get that over there. Pop that up there. All righty. Just as a reminder, Game Master Insight airs live on Fridays at 6 p.m. Central Time, except for the last Friday of the month. Once this live stream ends, the full live stream will remain available to YouTube members only, while the 4 panel discussions will post a month later to the public. If you enjoy this discussion, please like this video and subscribe to all the panelist channels, which you can find in the description. And real quickly for Malachi, Jeff Tate can't sing anymore, and he's a douche nozzle, so I don't care.
I'm still going to have to download some Tanzas songs. I missed them. They were a great band.
All right. All we are is... Never. So...
Elves in the wind.
Yeah, there you go. Elves. All we are, nothing but elves.
On that note, I'm not trying to promote this band, but they call themselves Gygax, and they're like a classic rock band that does a lot of D&D inspired music. And their logo looks like the 2nd edition font. Check out Gygax. They're awesome.
Cool.
Anyway.
And if you want to check out something really cool, check out a band called Darkest of the Hillside Tickets. They're from Vancouver, and they're a bunch of role players, and they do Cthulhu songs. Like,
that sounds cool.
Away. They're really good.
I can't recommend a band. I just listen to a bunch of electronic bullcrap.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Bacon.
I just said I can't recommend a band. I listen to a bunch of electronic bullcrap.
Oh, there's some good electronic bullcrap.
All right. Well, I was going to let them talk about themselves again, but they decided to do it on their own, so screw it. No. Before we go into our last segment, we'll have the panel briefly remind us who they are, what content they create, and where you can find them on the internet. We will go backward here. We'll start with Bacon. Remind the folks who you are and why they should care.
Sure. I'm Bacon, and I have a YouTube channel, Better with Bacon. I talk a lot about RPG esoterica and a bunch of crap that may or may not interest you. I find it interesting. That's where you can find me. It's Better with Bacon.
I'm going to subscribe to you.
Just because Bear likes crap.
That's right.
It's a bunch of schlock.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Lord Mattias.
I'm Lord Mattias. I too have a YouTube channel, Lord Mattias, where I talk about games and used to do a lot of reviewing of games. I'll be getting back to that soon. I'm also on Rumble at Gaming with Lord Mattias. I have a live stream that runs Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard, 10 Central. The second watch where Gary and I just have a lot of fun, relaxed conversation about a random topic. Tonight, we're actually going to have a guy named Greg Christopher, Chubby Funster on. We're going to be just chatting about Shadow Dark and his work and world building. And behind me on the desk, where is it? Up there, right there. Are some books. You can find those at Lulu and at the Red Room and Drive Through RPG. Just type in Lord Mattias. I'll come up. Or you can hit the link down below. And of course, if you're at my channel, please hit like and subscribe. And you should also hit like and subscribe for Bacon. I was on that show. I love his show. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. And then finally, Bear, and then I'll ask you the question.
Je ne parle pas anglais, je comprends pas ce que tu veux, mais merci pour la visite. I am Bear, the Gen X GM. I am the surliest, angriest Canadian you will ever meet. I produce a game called Heroic. I'm working on a game called Valorous. I have a channel here. You can see the link to it right there in my name at Bear, the Gen X GM. I have a Patreon. I have legions of fans and just enough haters to keep it interesting. And I don't subscribe to any of this pretentious nonsense about role playing. It's a game. Roll the dice, play the game, quit bitching. That's my attitude in general.
All right. So in what way,
for the whole internet bullshit about role playing that always comes up.
In what way do role-playing games enable participants from varied cultural backgrounds and play traditions to appreciate unfamiliar perspectives, potentially forging more inclusive and understanding connections? Insert your DEI here.
I assume I'm starting again.
Yes. Segment 4. Yep.
I would like to point out that I am going to sit down with you and teach you how to write journalism because these questions are too long. No.
There's a reason why they're that long, though.
I know, but
it's intentional.
Anyway, it's a bad intention, sir. You have bad intentions. Yeah, it allows us all to get along despite our economic status, our religious status, our social status, and all those sorts of things. I have literally watched games where one of the players was extremely poor. And everyone felt bad when we would order food for the meal break at the game that this guy was pulling out, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every week. So quietly behind the scenes, one of the players took up a collection, and every week we'd all pitch in a little bit, and he'd go, "Hey guys, it's my treat for the game because everybody's so great. I'm going to buy everybody food." So it never felt like it was a charity case for the guy. It just felt like this guy was doing something for everybody, and he got to have a great meal at least, every week at the game. And in college, times were tired. When you're eating ramen, 7 meals a week, 8 meals a week, that one weekend where you got to have pizza or whatever was really great. And it was because of the camaraderie and the social unity of our group, despite every single one of us coming from a different religion, a different language group, a different part of the country. Like, we were very, very different people. And yet we were all able to pull together and, be superheroes and have a great time. So yeah, I do firmly believe that is something that makes role-playing great, bringing people of diverse and different backgrounds together to share an experience. So since,
you're the dirty centrist, apparently.
I am, and I'm the dirty story gamer. Look at me.
And the dirty story gamer. You're just dirty. In what ways do diverse play styles, like things like the 4D crowd won't stand for, and I won't stand for, and the beer and pretzel crowd won't stand for, in what way do these diverse play styles expand a group or even the hobby's worldview, motivating individuals to adapt to unusual I cannot even read my own writing now. To adapt their unusual approach to problem solving. Basically, the intent of this question, for those who is, I've been at tables where, oh my God, this dude just does the same thing every time, but then so does this person, then so does this person, then so does this person. When they combine all that together, they can actually wrap their heads around something to come up with something creative.
Variety is the spice of life. If everybody thinks the same, they're going to come to the same solution every time. But if people think differently and they are working together as a collective group, they will present different ideas from different perspectives. So let's take this imaginary table you're talking about, and we'll have a 4D guy, and we'll have a beer and pretzels guy, and we'll have Bacon and Mateus with their somewhat unique but also sometimes not matching philosophical views, and me, who's the dirty, filthy story gamer centrist, and we have a problem to solve. Well, we're each going to bring our solution from our perspective, and that's going to give us a wider choice of option and a better way of looking at the problem than if we all just agreed. And when one guy went, "Hey, it's I don't know, what's that? What's the puzzle box from Hellraiser? Laments."
Oh my god, I can't remember the name of it. We just call it the puzzle box, but yeah.
Yeah. It's we'll call it Lamont's Quest. I know that's not the name, but you get the idea. It's something's lament or whatever. It's that, and then everybody agrees and goes, "Yep." Well, that's not going to be creative. That's not going to be interesting. That's just going to be a bunch of people smelling each other's farts and living in their echo chamber. But if you get a bunch of different philosophies together, it's a this. Is it? Maybe it's a that. Well, what if we look at it this way? I don't think so. I think it's a plot. And you'll get some role playing out of that. You'll get some conversation. You'll get some dynamic. You'll get some interesting things. And so long as no one is what time is it? Still too early for the C word. So long as no one is a part of anatomy about it, they're going to learn, they're going to grow, and they're going to see different perspectives, which are actually really important for humans to see different perspectives as opposed to always seeing the same things over and over again, because that just breeds intolerance and rigidity. Whereas if they start to see other ideas and they open themselves to it, they might develop a little bit of fluidity in their thought process and learn to think and look at problems from a different perspective sometimes, which might lead to them proving their humanity, thereby proving me wrong. Role-playing is therapy.
So I've been at a couple different tables. These didn't happen at the exact same time. One person was a hardcore atheist, and holy God, he was a religious atheist for how strong he took that stance. Another table was somebody. It has nothing to do with religion, but just to understand who the person was. He's on the conservative religious side, okay? And when they were at the table, only their way could be right.
See previous comment about female anatomy.
No, I get that. But at this point, without using just the whole kick them out of the game trope that we all probably agree with here, how do you use the diversity at the table to help the people on either side? Like the one person, like, oh my God, you're always going to the fanciful. It could just be solved by doing this. Here's the skill in the book. Here's the thing in the game. Here's what our characters can do. And just like that's the answer. Stop taking this to some crazy realm that nobody believes in. Or on the flip side, the dude was pretty much a libertarian, I guess you'd call him nowadays, where he was always like, nope. They got to be free, and we're going to take down every order of oppression that's out there. We're going to take down the monarchy, and we're going to take down the Thieves Guild, and we're going to take down all this stuff because every individual has to choose on his own, not realizing that there's a negative side to that as well. And that's like literally what those two players would do constantly. One of the groups, I'll just be honest, I left. But two different tables. But when somebody has a mentality like that, like this is the only way to do it, and I'm sick and tired of you guys acting like there's even another option here as players, how can you curb a player like that without just saying you need to go?
As a GM?
Either we'll do both, as a GM or a player.
Well, as a player, I don't care because I'm not a player. As a GM, it's real simple. Okay, well, I'm a dirty, filthy story gamer that uses a roadmap, not a schematic for my games. And when I say roadmap, I mean I want to go there, and I want to go there, and I want to go there. How we get there is going to be up to the players. So when we get to that impasse, no, it's this, no, it's that. One of three things is going to happen. They're all wrong. The guy that's not those two is right. Or a solution that requires all of their input, and each of them has a little piece of the puzzle, but only by working together do they make the solid puzzle happen. That's how I do it.
Okay. And by the way, being this is Game Master Insight. That's why I asked the question the way I did, because it is really easy for us to sit here and say that player's just got to go. But maybe you actually want to help the player. And I think that's a really good example right there. A little piece of this, a little piece of that. Kind of force the player without forcing the player to recognize that the world is bigger than you. Is there a way that you could use and this is, by the way, this is for everybody now. Is there a way that you could use consequences also to kind of, I don't want to say teach a lesson. That sounds bad, but I'm going to go with it, to kind of teach that lesson?
I'll let someone else answer.
I think you have to. Because how else are you going to do it without coming off like you're lecturing? You know what I mean? And singling this person out and kind of lecturing them for their behavior or whatever. I agree with what Bear said. I mean, I think that's what I would do. And I earlier I made a kind of a distinction between the online gaming community and what else happening outside of that. I think for a lot of people, whatever the number is, I say 95%. I mean, people are gaming with a steady gaming group. It's their friends. So if kicking them off the table, I just don't think is a good recommendation unless it's like really bad behavior. So I think the question that you asked is a really good one. Like, what can we do to get that friend / player to get along a little bit? So whether it's making sure everyone has a piece of the puzzle, but also enforcing consequences. I haven't even drank yet. To get things to, and I do that actually all the time. I have a friend who is convinced immersion is learning how to properly build a character. Role playing is having a really melodramatic 5-page backstory. I mean, he is that guy. But he's also a good friend of mine. I'm not going to kick him from my table. You know what I mean? So, but he's over the years, he's come along, and I've been, through, conversations, experimentations, and trying new things. He's kind of come along. He's grudgingly moving towards the OSR. But yeah, that I think is the way to go. Enforcing consequences. God, I can't speak all of a sudden. Consequences, and what Bear said, making sure everyone has an opportunity to participate in solving the puzzle, the obstacle, the villain's plot, whatever.
Okay.
Oh, if Mateus agrees with me, I take back what I said. I was wrong, and I mean.
Wow.
I am gonna, I guess, kind of flaunt the question and say that I am very happy to just leave that table. I think the best consequences in this scenario, and this is with someone who's unteachable. If they're teachable, that's one thing. If they're, malleable, if they're accepting to everyone stopping and saying, hey, look, you're maybe going a little too over the line here. You're maybe, acting out of turn. That's one thing. But if they're just incredibly unteachable, I'll leave the table. I'm too old. It's not my job to police other people's behavior, and I know what kind of people I want to hang out with, what kind of people I want to game with, and that's not one of them. So it's a little bit of a deviant answer, but that's kind of how I would handle it. And then I would hope that. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Max.
I'm gonna actually. I know that Lord Mattias and Bacon, you guys need to answer the primary question as well, but I'm gonna actually move this on, especially considering the era we live in right now. Now, things have tempered down a little bit, but I've also sat at tables. Remember, I was the token Republican, where I would sit at a table and there would be President Bush jokes, not knowing who I voted for, but thinking that it was going to get under my skin, or war in Iraq jokes, or things like that. When I was at this table, it was in the early 2000s. So. When you have players sitting at the table doing things like that, nowadays it'd be like, Bruce was doing this, Hillary Clinton jokes, or Nancy Pelosi jokes, or President Trump jokes, or, things like that obviously don't belong there. But for whatever reason, the majority of the table goes, ha ha ha, yeah, that's funny, that's great. Oh, you mean like when he did this, to me that derails from the game. I don't know how your stance on that, but how do you curb that without, again, we're trying to do this in a manner that's not get out with that nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. If it's at a table that, like, let's take 4D for example. I actually interact with those guys quite a bit, and I'm sure they've told you this. As far as I'm aware, I don't want to misspeak, but they like to establish a pattern of behavior prior to the game starting. So they'll say, we don't want table talk. We don't want, pop culture references at the table while people are playing their games. That immediately kills all of that. But if it's a more like beer and pretzel style of game, I don't know how you can wrangle that, man, aside from pulling someone aside and saying, hey, look, you have to stop that. You're making some people uncomfortable, which is a perfectly valid way to do it.
Only the wrong type of people.
Well, hey, man, then you're with the wrong type of people, I guess. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
No, I get it. I'm just curious because, like I said, it was never a problem for me except for that one incident. So it was always something that it just wasn't a big deal. I'd roll my eyes or I'd just stay in character or something like that. But I've seen tables where it gets excessive and it almost derails the game.
Sure. Well, I agree with you. I mean, I've been at tables where, people just kind of stop and talk politics, and it's not my thing. Never has been.
Even if it's not politics, what is sports? I know a lot of nerds. They go, look, the sports ball again. Well, I like sports, So I want to be careful here because I'm not trying to get into the whole out of character, in character thing. I'm just talking about would people have diverse tastes and diverse beliefs and things like that.
I sorry, I don't mean to interject.
No, please do.
I sort of feel like this character you've invoked, I really think they're rare, and I think because I just have not really experienced it, except for these a couple of times where I think Barry, you said this, they'll find their way out the door. I think yeah, that's what you said. I think a vast majority of the time you're gonna, if you do have like this like conflict starting because of a difference in taste, like again that buddy I just described, he loved Critical Role, like he worshipped Matt Mercer when he first came out. He's like, you should see what this guy does, man. And I watched the first half of the first campaign. I was like, this is going to change the hobby, not for the better. But I worked with him because he's my friend. I'm not going to kick him out of our monthly game because he wants to acting and all this other stuff. He had, and to his credit, and not even to his credit, what he should do is recognize that he's not the only one at the table and everyone else has their interests. And he molded himself. He changed. And I put a little story game into the games I run for them too. For him. Why? I'm happy to do it because he's my friend, So with the character that you've invoked, I think by all means, if you have to, they sound just flat out disruptive. Again, Barry, you said earlier, this is a person that's in it for themselves and not for the group. They don't have the team mentality, the team sport mentality. So by all means, have them go. And if they're your friend, you're going to have a very uncomfortable conversation.
With one of the groups that I was talking about, I was actually the odd man out. Like I said, token Republican. I was the odd man out. So it was either the game master lose 4 people or lose 1 person. Now, 99% of the people I talk to say, well, you made the wrong decision because you weren't the problem. I actually think he made the right decision because he could either lose basically the game in the group or me.
So you're really going to hate the session then tomorrow because you guys are going to Davin, and it's going to start like this. A thing, Kirby. They say he's a king, a high king. That's what they tell me. He's a great guy. He's from Cowlitz. Interesting place. They farm a lot. Don't know if a farmer can be a king. We'll find out. Like that.
Well, I'm going to be an hour early now. Anyway, so Lord Matty, so let me ask you the primary question here so you get a chance to answer is what ways do role-playing games enable participants from very cultured backgrounds and play traditions appreciate unfamiliar perspectives, potentially forging more inclusive and understanding connections?
I don't know if RPGs can actually do that. I think if it does do that, I think it's because the players are already predisposed to being kind of open-minded. I've played with a couple of people recently in the past few years being online. I like them. I like them but some of their political beliefs will say, or some of their worldview ideas about certain, we'll say, groups of people I disagree with, and to their credit, they never brought it into the game other than the occasional, side comment or something. But private conversations after the game would come up and I'd be sitting there like, oh God, here we go. So I don't, and I like faction play. I like bringing in like stuff that, 5e modern 5e players don't like slavery and racism. I bring that
You mean
stuff
bad
in
things in order to, try to deal with?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
weird.
exactly. And I don't think anybody had some epiphany because of my game. All right. That being said, a personal story about my buddy who passed away. He was gay, and I'm a Catholic. Don't necessarily agree with. I never agreed with his lifestyle, but we had a conversation one night, and we never would have had this conversation but for the game, because we were gaming together. I met him through another good friend of mine. Okay. And we had a conversation, and while we didn't convince each other of anything, we walked away with mutual respect, and we gamed for almost 10 years together. In fact, when the Oberfell decision came down, making it law of the land, I'm sitting behind my game, getting my game set up. I'm behind my Dungeon Master screen. He comes in and he's giving me this glance. He's wearing this like pride shirt. And he's just giving me this glance, a little smile on his face. And I go, you won, it was just like totally cool. We had no animosity towards each other or anything like that. So was it the game that did that? No, but maybe the game made it possible.
Sure.
Because I don't think I would have ever met him otherwise. You know what I mean?
Think there's actually some truth to that. And I say that for this reason. Again, being the token Republican, those same guys that I gamed with, mind you, I only knew this crowd in Minnesota because I was looking for a new game group after I got out of the Air Force. And a friend took me over there. They ended up liking me better than him. And so I hung out with them a lot. They used to do something like this to me at parties. I'd be sitting there minding my own business, getting drunk. But as I'm sure you can tell, I'll say what's on my mind. And here's just hopefully I can keep this quick, but here's one of the stories. We're sitting on the porch smoking cigarettes, and Greg comes up and he's like, hey, Schlo, that's my last name. So for the folks out there, did you know that she's a lesbian? And of course, when somebody says something like that, that instantly implies like, well, what's your problem with lesbians? Okay. Right. I'm like, oh God, I'm at a party, I'm just trying to drink and have some fun. The quick version is this. She and I had a great conversation. Of course, we agreed to disagree, but we kind of became, I don't know if we'd say friends because I didn't like hang out with her or anything like that. But when we saw each other, we said, hey, we were nice to each other. We were cordial. We were what humans would do. Her friend, the single white female, went ballistic, and they damn near had to hold her off of me. Otherwise, I was going to knock her the fuck out. Yes, I was going to punch a woman because she was getting that belligerent in my face. And she wasn't even, she was just an ally or whatever the hell you want to call it. She was the crazy one. I actually got along great with the lesbian, and now why am I kind of piggybacking on what you said with that? Because I wouldn't actually have been involved with a lot of people like that if it wasn't for gaming. Most of my friends in the world are right wingers. That's just, kind of groups. It was a groups of a feather flock together. But gaming exposed me to many, many other types. I gamed with a guy in War Games West in Albuquerque. He was not just gay. He was San Francisco flamboyantly gay. Okay. But at the table, he role played. Yeah. That's what we were there for. And you start to realize that, him, seeing me as this crazy conservative, me seeing him as this wackadoodle liberal, you know what? Maybe you're not so bad.
I find your tolerance off-putting and disturbing, and I am quitting the show in protest, sir.
Okay. You know what? No, please do. No, wow. Oh, no.
That escalated quickly.
It really jumped up a notch.
Okay. I don't think, is there anything you...
a guy with a trident.
Is there anything that you wanted to piggyback on top of that, Lord Mattias? Because otherwise, I'm not going to ask you a direct follow-up question. I'm going to go ahead and over to Bacon, unless there's more you want to say about that.
No, that's it. Other than I don't think the game, but the game made it possible. And I think if you're if you're already an open-minded person, the game will help you see more, I guess. But at the end of the day, I have gamed with people who I think if they knew my friend Lynn, they would have said either he goes or I go. So
bye, Felicia.
So I don't think.
Actually, no, Lord Mattias, I was thinking about this question earlier. I'm going to if this is a quick one, I hope. Have you ever done something like, I don't know, it's like I've got books like Al-Qadim, Chult, and I mean like the Mastika and so forth. Have you ever like looked at those books and been like, I want to find out more about like 1001 Arabian Nights, or find out more about Arabic culture or anything like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Nothing is jumping out at me right now. Well, actually, when John the Basic Expert was working on Makwahital, I was a regular at his Gilded server at that time, and it was kind of interesting to see that. And I was like, I would for a good 6 weeks would go to like, I think some Google thing where it would actually pronounce the word for me so I could learn to say it right. Makwahital,
sure. Macaroni.
So, yeah, right. So yeah, no, I am definitely that guy who will get into something. Something will trigger, and yeah.
I actually have the inverse experience of that, which is in the 80s and 90s, people were way too fucking into feudal Japan in role-playing games.
Oh God, yes.
Want to know less about feudal Japan, to the point where if you tell me you should watch this anime, oh, what's it about? It's about a samurai, and I think, no, thank you.
What's funny about those days? The funniest part of that is on top is how wrong those things were, and we took them as gold.
I never did, because they annoyed me.
All right, let's slide over to Bacon. By the way, thanks again for. I know, right? Thanks again for being here tonight, filling in that backup role. This is why I like having the backups. You proved the point today, and I appreciate you being here. So, I'm happy to be here. In what ways do role-playing games enable participants from varied culture backgrounds and play traditions to appreciate unfamiliar perspectives, potentially forging more inclusive and understanding connections?
So I don't know if they do without that prior component of compassion and love of the game. So you are literally, in the context of the game, stepping into someone else's shoes, right? And so there can be that situation where the real world atheist becomes the paladin or the cleric calling on their god to aid them. And then that just kind of completely goes away outside the context of the game, right? That should hopefully impart some sort of curiosity or compassion in order to maybe have uncomfortable discussions with people, like Lord Mattias was having it. I would count that discussion with your friend a very uncomfortable discussion, but a very worthwhile one. And I think that it requires that compassion component first. There are plenty of people who play role-playing games who just don't have that. And it's not role-playing games, it's just human beings, right? Like there are plenty of humans who they have their views, they're set in their ways. But in a game where you are stepping into the role of someone from a completely different culture or alien physiology, or like you said, Al-Qadim or Birthright, there's a whole bunch of different cultures you can play in the Birthright setting. So it's there. And I tend toward Lord Mattias. I will go and do deep dives into other real world cultures to get a better feel for where they come from. I'll look at geopolitics, I'll look at culture, I'll look at faiths, I'll look at the surrounding cultures and how they interact with their surrounding cultures. I find that absolutely fascinating, and I believe that it does inform role play. But I also don't know if that's enough to bring people to that common table. I think it starts with compassion.
I think that's actually a very good start. I want to have a little back and forth with you on this. I'm a little bit different with you on this one. And
okay.
It's not that I'm misinterpreting. It's just different expectations, I think.
Sure.
I don't want to know the actual culture, because I think it takes away from the tropes. And let me give an example here. So I don't know if you know about the Asian Idiots podcast. They're not Asians. They're actually Canadians, I think they're Canadians or whatever, but they call it like the Asians Represent podcast. I went off on them one time over Oriental Adventures because they were calling it all types of, it's racist, blah, 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 right? And now my wife is literally Japanese. Born and raised, speaks the language, Japanese passport, here on green card, all the above, right? True Japanese person. We brought her on the show, and her deal was like, because, a lot of Americans are like, that's wrong to represent. This isn't what samurai did. This isn't what actually how a katana is made. And she's like, who cares? You're playing fantasy. You're playing make believe. Why do you even care? And it was so great to hear that from her perspective. She looked at Oriental Adventures and be like, that isn't Chinese, or Japanese, that's Chinese. But Oriental Adventures just kind of mixed in, right? Because Oriental Adventures is just a hodgepodge. It's just a conglomeration. By the way, anybody who's got members only access can see that, because we light them up. In fact, I say a few things on there that actually have people very uncomfortable. I don't care. I would say them again, and don't think I wouldn't say them in public. I actually have said those words in public. With that said, to bring this back, like we're playing in an idealized fantasy setting. What I would like to know is more about 1001 Arabian Adventures. What I'd really like to know is more about the myth behind the Kensai, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not. By the way, I'm not countering you on this. I lived in Kuwait. I'm not bringing any of that into my Dungeons and Dragons game. My Al Qadim game. But knowing more about like the ancient, like especially pre-Islam culture. Oh, now we're talking, if that makes sense.
It does make sense to me. And that's definitely a part of the investigation that I personally do. And I'm one who really likes mundanity, right? I want to know what they ate with, what meals they prepared, how they prepared them. I want to know if the population centers are cities or rural areas. Like, I go into that sort of mundanity because I think that it helps inform me with regard to the culture. Whether or not that's relevant in a game, I don't really know, right?
I always think reading more is good.
Interest. Huh?
I always think reading more is good. Learning more is better. The only thing, and I want to be very clear about this, because I probably came off a little more initially antagonistic than I even meant to. I'm not saying that anything that Bacon is doing is wrong. I'm just saying one of the things I do differently than him, is probably a better way, is I don't care about the true culture. I care about the mythological culture. I'd rather read the Odyssey than study Aristotle.
Yeah, and that'll go back to my esoterica. But I think that, especially with the types of games that are available to us, and it depends on preference and it depends on system and setting, a lot of times the myth is going to serve you a lot better than who lives in what part of the country and what they grow as a sharecrop. You know what I mean? Like, mythology is very, very frequently going to just serve you better in the context of a game. And I acknowledge that. And I do like to investigate the mythology. I do like to read religious texts or ancient stories. So I'm with you there. And I also think that in the context of a game, there are going to be things that you can read from a real world perspective, but that will aid you in the game better than, all that crap that I just mentioned.
Sure. All right. Anything, I want you guys, anything that you guys want to...
My microphone on? Yeah, good. I want to point out the hypocrisy of the player, ladies and gentlemen, if that may take a moment of your show to explain this. We just heard them talk about how they love to read about the mundanity of these cultures and what their foods were, what their dress style was, what utensils looked like, why did they use rice, etc. But when you write all that down for them in a campaign setting, well, they can't be arsed to read that, because that would be...
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Right. This is directly pointed at the guy at the top of the screen.
Gotcha.
Just in case you
Okay, I'll shut up.
And yet I never said those words that you just repeated. That's why he jumped in, because you said his words, not my words.
You said, back up the goddamn stream. You just said, well, I love to read. We should read, and the more we can learn. And
No, I said people should read more. I didn't. I said I like to read more about the mythology.
I'll clip it later and give it to you to private chat just to show you that I'm not talking at my asshole.
Okay.
Jerk.
So, but at this point, because I have to type a couple things here real quickly, if there's anything left on the table you guys want to address specifically about the cultural influence, like this happened not at my table, thank God, but I heard of a table that the entire group, where I guess were different ethnicities, Mexican, Filipino, whatever, I forget what, there was a military thing, and every week somebody brought a different dish. And they ate while they played, and they swapped recipes and so forth. Anything with regard to better understanding somebody else's position and or culture and or philosophy. If you guys want to jump in on, go for it. Well, I have to type a couple things up here.
Well, I think that's awesome that they did that. I love trying new foods like that. But at the end of the day, the game, at the very least, I think I can agree that it facilitates and sets the stage for it, much like a sports team could, right? But Bacon, you said it best. If people don't have like this fundamental compassion, and maybe that's like a curiosity born from that, or maybe I don't think you're going to have, a dude goose stepping his way to the table is going to goose step his way away from the table. You know what I mean? You're not going to have that American History X moment, so.
Yeah, I don't. I'm scared of people from other places that think differently than me, and I don't trust their foods. And frankly, I don't understand why they just can't be more American. Jesus, the flag, apple pie, and hamburgers, son. That's
they all just eat eyeballs.
Yeah, that's it. They eat monkey brains, and they eat the entrails. That's just nasty. Why you got to do that? That's grotesque. You should be eating some 100% American red meat, sir. That's what you should be doing. Absolutely. I had a game that was mostly women, and they were from all different parts of the place because it was assembled out of people I worked with at a call center, and we had potluck nights where one girl brought this Venezuelan dish, another girl brought the Venezuelan girl brought arepas, the Mexican girl brought empanadas, stuff like that, and it was great fun. It was a good time. I think I have a different perspective on a lot of these things from the experiences I had, A, playing in Canada, and B, playing in Quebec, which is even the rest of Canada and I don't get to share cultural touch points sometimes because I grew up in a French society and they grew up in a very English American influenced society. So when I hear these horror stories about the goose stepper at the table and all that kind of stuff, I'm just like, that guy would have just gotten hockey shirted where I'm from. Someone would just get out. And that would have been the end of the fucking story. There would have been nothing to it. And I think that's the difference. I think we can be tolerant to a fault in our groups, and we can be tolerant to a fault in our groups, depending on what our foibles are. And sometimes I think we all need just to fucking relax. I had a game I was running online during COVID, and a friend of mine was playing. She'd never played OSC, and there was another guy playing who was like a super OSC guy, and he got mad because she'd keep asking, well, because we're doing theater of the mind. She's like, well, do I have flanking? Oh, no, flanking's not a thing in this game. Oh, okay. And then 3 rounds later, can I flank him? No, there's still no flanking in this. Oh, right, sorry. And this guy was sending me private messages raging, what's this 5e bullshit she's bringing to the game? And I'm just like, oh, my fucking Christ, dude. My brother in God and Jesus, relax. Chill the fuck out. And I think that's where we get into the danger of people who put their identity into gaming as opposed to it being a fucking hobby.
I agree with you there. And I think a lot of my experiences gaming online have been very vastly different from my in-person gaming experiences. And I just don't mean the actual experience of playing, because I think we can all agree in-person gaming is ideal. But like the experiences I've had with other people have been just crazy. But in a good way. Like I've met a lot of interesting people from across the country. I mean, for crying out loud, my co-host Gary, I mean, we become like really good friends, and he's from Texas. We've never been in the same room together, but that's going to change at North Texas Con. Can't wait. So that's been very positive. It's just there's been one or two guys, right, where I'm just kind of like, you're being cool at the virtual table, so I'm not going to worry about your really bizarre, not good beliefs. But of course, if they did come out and they, causing harassment, things like that, then that would be a very different thing. But yeah, it's been overall a very positive thing.
I'm going to disagree with you. There is one way that online gaming is vastly superior to face-to-face gaming. I don't have to wear pants online.
Oh, you wear pants in person?
You have to. It's a hate crime in Canada if I don't. I mean, they'll Bill C something me into jail. Just the way it is.
I'm really close with my friends, I guess.
Bear mentioned a moment ago about the OSC and the 5e, because of the people in his group, and we've talked about the 4D and the beer and pretzels game styles. In what way do those, we'll just call them diverse styles as well, and even beyond, expand a group's worldview? Maybe motivating an individual to adapt, or maybe somebody like me to tone it down a little bit, because I definitely have my preferred style, and there is a couple of styles that I just walk away from the table from. Not gonna do that, but maybe calm down. I think you can have some fun with this. I'll even give an example real quickly. It took years for me to start playing online and actually being okay with it. And then I've had 3 good GMs in a row. But in what way do these diverse play styles assist all their players at the table to maybe adapt a more diverse approach?
I believe I already answered this question earlier when I said they can all work together with their different approaches, and as a result, find different angles to solve those problems. And if they're paying attention and they're not being 941 all risk it cunts, they can learn.
You said the F word 9 times a couple of minutes ago, so
I haven't said it once. This is the first time I've dropped a C-bomb.
No, see, I said you said the F word 9 times in the last.
Listen, I'm Canadian. Fuck is like spice. If they're not being bitches, there you happy. They can learn from the experience, and they may be able to broaden their horizons a little bit. Look, my as we say in French, chicane, my dispute, which was still baffling to me with the 4D guys, doesn't mean that I don't think there's things to be learned from 4D. I don't think the 4D guys are all completely out to lunch. In fact, I've never once said that their style of play was the issue I had, because there's something to be learned from that, because we do a little bit of that ourselves in our game, right? So it's there. But we can learn from all styles of play. We can learn from all styles of game. And as a result of that, we can figure out what we like, we can figure out what we dislike, but we can also learn how to be more fucking flexible. And I think in 2025, the time has come for most of us to learn to be a little more flexible, because we've done inflexible for about 10 years now, and it's not fucking working. So maybe we can try some different stuff. That's all I'm saying. That said, D&D 2024 is shit. I have it. It's shit. Thank you.
I think
here.
piggyback. I haven't actually read 2024. I have no
just
interest.
You, Max. Just you.
I piggybacking on that and maybe ratcheting down the seriousness a bit. I think that sometimes people role play a certain way because that's what they learned and they don't know anything else. And so when you were exposed to the different styles and different ways to play, different way people like to engage with the game, it broadens horizons. Maybe you walk away and you want to try. Maybe it's uncomfortable at first, for sure. Everyone, out of their comfort zone. That's not a pleasant place to be for an extended period of time. But exposure over time, you give it a shot. Maybe you do a scene. Do it instead of describing third person, you describe in first person. Maybe instead of saying your character does something or speaks a certain way, you actually do the thing.
Can I ask Bacon a question?
Yes, you can ask Bacon a question.
No. That's like an in character when players say that in character.
Yes, yeah. Yes. So a lot of play style has to do with how you engaged with the game at first and how long it lasted. How, I'll get there, I promise. Were you in the same campaign for 30 years and literally played no other way? Well, then you're going to have learned to have played a certain way, and there's going to be really no shaking you out of that.
So the greatest D&D movie ever made is Gamers 2: Darkness Rising. Okay, and I think it's a great movie. And one of the points of that movie is the girlfriend who comes in and plays very differently than the boyfriend who is all super third edition guy. And you have two or three fantastic moments that are presented in that. One where the guy who plays the bard who keeps dying turns to her at one point and just goes, I love the way you think. I've never seen it before, but wow. It's just he's being exposed to something new and it matters to him. Or when the boyfriend rage quits the game and the guy who's been his little partner in crime the whole time climbs under the table, pops up at his seat, looks at the GM and goes, so what happens next? Because he doesn't give a shit about the guy rage quitting. It's about the game. Let's keep playing. And then at the very end, when the rage quitter comes back and he says, I figured out that if I stop playing, the story ends. And that's the key. It's not about you. It's about the experience. It's about what you're doing together. And you know what? People are going to play different styles. People are going to have different ways. And he disagrees with me on this. And we've had, it's just a disagreement. I don't care if I have a table where one guy is like, I go to the bartender and ask him if there are any rumors around the town. Versus across the table, the other guy was like, my character, I sing a song to the rules of the... I don't give a fuck. Because they're both playing the game. They're both sharing the experience, and they're both playing in a way that makes them happy. And I've had that table. And over time, the Shakespearean idiot calmed the fuck down a little bit. And the guy who was like, started talking in character a little bit.
So on that, Bear, we actually agree, because I've always talked about, yes, I have this way at my table that you're supposed to play, but I've always talked about usually the players, sometimes me, encourage the player to play the way we play. It was only when somebody's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's really the only time that's happened. I don't have that same vetting process that the 4D guys have. Like, only the elite can come to our table. Like, no, because I want more people. Thing is, I want the people that come in to respect the traditions, respect the tables, and so forth, and not be like, well, I'm going to do my thing. It's like, that's not how this works. This is a team sport. You're going to play shortstop the way shortstop is supposed to be played.
Yes. But I just wanted to it kind of dovetails with what Bear just said and kind of jump off of what Bacon said. I had a player who got into the hobby through World of Warcraft and then 5th edition. Okay. And that's what he played for, I don't know, 5 years or something like that. And then he started gaming with us. And we were playing a little bit of 3rd edition at the time. And then I just, then I really dove headfirst into the OSR and I wanted to start playing older games. And he's like the youngest in our in-person gaming crew. And when I said I was going to start running some online games and do some actual plays for my YouTube channel, all my in-person gaming crew guys were like, oh, we don't want to be on camera. We don't want to be recorded. That's weird. We don't like online play. But this guy, out of loyalty to me and friendship to me, said, hey, I'll try it. So his very first OSR game was Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And I don't want to say he loves it, but he definitely likes OSR play now, such that when we started a month ago, Gods of the Forbidden North, my Critical Role friend was just like, oh my God, I have no player agency. I don't have any choice here to make the character I want to make. And I'm like, that's not player agency, dude, but whatever. And I look over and my buddy who's been gaming with me for 3 years with Lamentations of the Flame Princess just looks at me and shrugs. He goes, he'll figure it out. I did. And that was really cool to see that his understanding of the game deepened just by having a little intellectual curiosity into all that's out there. And that's all I want people to do too, just in general. If you want to be a better game master, you got to participate in conversations like this. You got to be willing to experiment. Hell, I'm interested in trying to do 4D just because it sounds interesting. I don't know if I'll like it, but that's the only way you're going to get better and have a deeper understanding of this hobby. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay.
Thanks, Forrest.
Anything, anything left on the table in terms of what was this segment called? Creating new perspectives when it comes to the players, and maybe having a little more understanding and a little more patience with people of different backgrounds. The poor person with these. To be fair, when I grew up, we were all poor. That's why we did gaming, so we didn't have the rich kid at the table until I was already, kind of established in the hobby. But whether it's, poor versus rich, the athlete versus the asthmatic, the, the drug addict versus, at our table, I've talked about it a few times. When I was in high school, half our group were women, but they were all either whores, drama queens, or ended up in prison, and I mean that literally. Some of this stuff
with all my exes. What the fuck?
right? It was weird because I hear these horror stories about, oh my god, these guys sit at the table and hit on the girls. Well, luckily for us, the girls were hitting on, were hitting us. Unfortunately, some of them were hitting on multiple people at a time. And when you're in high school and you got hormones going, that's a weird thing. But that did open the door to other perspectives. That was actually, even back then, I realized I didn't even know what Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, or whatever it was, but I knew that one of the girls at the table I thought was wacky. What the hell are these weird beliefs you've got? But we sat there and we played the game. All right. Well, I guess that'll be my final word.
Yeah, you said something we all agree on. We're not arguing with you.
I know, it's weird. Like, I must have said it wrong then. How do I say this a better way? All right. I guess, no, just one last time. Anything that you guys want to bring up as final comments, or are we ready to move on?
I'm good to move on.
Okay. Perfect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Well, this Sunday on RPG Digest, I am going to do something different. Because I got to wait a couple of weeks for Heathen Dog to come back from some vacations and so forth. I'm going to be covering the Rifter number 18. Coincidentally, it's got a bunch of After the Bomb stuff in there, so it's a good Rifter. While Heathen Dog himself is going to be covering the Coalition Wars, The Siege on Tolkien number 6. And we're going to see if we can, promote that book a little bit, apparently. Next Friday on Game Master Insight is going to be The Rule of Cool, Rule 0 and the Rule of Cool with Hunter, Malachi, and Agile Monk, who's been, guess what? You do realize, Agile Monk, next week, Bear is going to be in chat. Right back at you.
Sadly, I have a game.
Oh, well, I'll make sure that the stream goes on a while.
While you're all torturing each other, I'll be having fun.
All right, let's look at some super chats here. Did we get? I don't think we got any.
No, nobody loves us.
That's right. Well, but you know what I did? I did get 2 memberships. So first of all, Crafty, there would be no way I could game with he who shall never be named. There's only one person who has that name, and that person has passed. And just for the record, it's not Shauner. You can say his name. It's another guy's name who starts with S, who has also passed. But he was such a big. He's the worst of the worst of humanity. And I think his channel might still be up, but he is actually the worst of the worst of humanity, and I'm actually happy that dude's dead. And I know somebody's going to respond back, that's mean to say. No, it's not mean to say. If you knew the guy or interacted with the guy at all, this isn't just somebody who's on the other side of the fence, or somebody like, who's the guy that wanted my channel to go, Indestructible Boy? I don't want him dead. This dude is actually somebody who theoretically should have been on the same side as me. We should have been buds. No, I'm happy the dude dead. That's how evil that this person was. So I agree with Crafty on that. Someone would walk away from the table with a black eye. Yes, this guy actually said that he would sit at a table and mess with a dungeon master just to prove to see if that dungeon master is worthy of him being at the table. Stuff like that.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that's like some of the nice stuff he said. So I agree with Crafty on that one. And thank you. 52 months. How close am I? I'm 8 months away from having to figure out how to make a 5. Dang it, man. All right. Thank you, Crafty. And Bear the Gen X, because he likes my rigged contest for 17 months. Thank you very much. We're not in segment 5 yet, sir. Peace. There you go. There you go. All right. So with that, I wanted to feel bad because of the channels. Wait, I want indestructible to feel bad? You mean indestructible? I think he quit or something, didn't he? Didn't he say he was quitting? Whatever. That's neither here nor there. I'd welcome him on to talk about stuff. He'd never come here because, that's promoting the evil team. But because of exactly what we're...
If you get a chance to talk to him, ask him why he's such an awful magician.
Dude, come on. No.
Jesus.
Well, he was going to make a channel.
Disappear. All right. No, but in terms of what we're talking about today, I think that what we're talking about today is a great segue into what I'm going to say here is kind of like my final thoughts. And that's just the idea of you don't have to agree with everybody out there. And yes, I actually do believe you might belong over there and I might belong over there. But here's your table. Do you need me to grab some chairs for you? There you go. Just stay over there and I'll stay over here.
Listen, I ain't got no problem with you being around or nothing. You can live in the neighborhood, but you just stay in your yard and I'll stay in my yard, and there the two shall meet, right, son?
Right. Exactly. So anyway, with that, thank you very much to tonight's panel, Bear, Lord Mattias, and Bacon. Whether you agree, I'm supposed to read this where you can't see it. There we go. Shh. There. Whether you agree or disagree with any panelists, I sincerely hope their perspectives both entertained and educated you and gave you some food for thought for your future gaming sessions. If you enjoyed this discussion, please like this video, subscribe to Legion of Myth, and to all the panelists whose links you can find in the description. Now, for my final comments, I really don't have any. I said almost everything that I wanted to say here. There are a couple things said at the beginning about... one thing that Bacon said, and this wasn't to take him out of context, I just wanted to clarify for myself. And this is because of experience, I don't play myself in as much as possible in my characters. So I understand kind of what he was talking about in segment 1 to some degree, where, I'm going to call it the lizard brain, where we're getting to the lizard brain, because I have to sometimes think that way to be a different character. But obviously there's always some of me that's going to come out of there. I'm not perfect on that, but I think it's much more fun to play somebody that's not me, to try something else, as long as I feel I can do it with respect. I don't mean respect for real world culture or something. I mean just respect for the table. And I also agree that we should take the game seriously. Now, seriously can still be having fun, but you should take the table seriously and, understand the folks that are at the table with you. If it's a completely beer and pretzels game, well, still take that seriously. Enjoy it. Sit there. Have fun with those folks. Drink your beer, eat your pretzels, make your fart jokes, do whatever it is that you're doing on there. And if you're like me and nope, that's not for me, then just don't play in that style of game. If you're in my game and somebody's having a quote unquote emotional moment or some crap like that, and you have to go, with rip a fart or inject with some joke or whatever, you're probably not going to be long for that table. Luckily at my tables, it's usually the players that call you out on that. So I don't even have to do too much in my experience, but yeah, take it seriously, whatever that happens to be. It's that intramural sport thing. And then the last thing I'll say here is no matter what we do, and this can mean different things to different people. I get that. I'm not diving into another topic here. Just respect the traditions of the game and the table. If you think that everything, like somebody talked earlier about, oh my God, I bring in slavery in the games. Yeah, those are the bad guys a lot of times. Yeah. Why did I not say all the time? Because maybe you're forced to make a deal with the devil on occasion. It's funny how it's okay to sleep with a succubus and have your soul sucked away, but Lord forbid that you actually have to make a trade with a slaver at one point. Nope, can't have that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Demons are cool, but not some dude that is making a buck on just the way the government of that setting works. I don't know. It's just weird for me. So respect the tropes and the traditions, but more so respect the table. And if you can't do that, I would say that you don't really belong. Now, with that, the folks who are watching the live stream is not over. For those who are watching this on video later, thank you very much for being here. Hope to see you next week. Great panel tonight, and I'll see you guys as soon as I find my outro music here. There we go. I will see you guys then. Have a great week.